What's going on? What's going on? Thank you for joining me in this episode of the Gospel of Truth. I'm your host, Marlon Wilson, and we have another great one for you today. I have Mr. TJump and Pastor Emilio Ramos. Man, I almost forgot my man's name, man. Can't forget his name, but thank you for joining me this evening. I know you guys are looking forward to this debate, man. I got a couple homeboys who, this is their pastor, Emilio Ramos, and they've been talking about it. You all know Mr. TJump. Dude's all over the internet trying to debate Christians, man. But let's see if his arguments hold up today. Before I bring these guys in, I do want to go ahead and encourage you to go ahead and like and follow the Gospel of Truth. Go ahead, subscribe, like, hit the notification bell, do what you have to do to stay in the loop with the Gospel of Truth. YouTube, Facebook, all this content is on podcasts as well. So iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Spotify, all this content is there. So go ahead, flow over there, subscribe. And while you're there, leave a good rating. With that, let me go ahead and go over a couple announcements I have coming up, shows I have coming up. All right, coming up July 24th, which is in a couple days, 3 days, Jim Majors versus Michael Jones, Inspired Philosophy. Their debating was Jesus buried in a tomb. That's coming up July 24th at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. After that, I have Jack Shannon versus Stephen Boyce. Does the Bible teach that remarriage is always sinful? Should be an exciting debate. It's an interesting debate. Touchy subject. Should be a great debate, though. July 27th at 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. It's 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. After that, I have Joseph Law versus Jeremiah Notir. Mormon versus Christian. Different worldview perspectives. Should be a great discussion. July 31st at 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Once again, that's another one at 12 p.m. And that's 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. After that, I have Richard Suttles versus Robert McKever. And Atheist versus Christian debate. Are our moral intuitions necessarily moral facts? Should be a very interesting discussion right there. That's coming up August 3rd at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Once again, that's just the next 4 shows on the Gospel of Truth. And I hope you're excited as I am about the future shows that are coming up. Once again, if you want to stay in the loop and not miss any of these debates live, you want to make sure that you're liking and subscribing. Hit the notification bell. Don't forget, because you'll be out the loop, man. And I want you in there. I want you in with us. All right. Make sure you stay in the loop. With that said, let me go ahead and bring these guys in. If you remember TJump, he came on my show. He was one of the first individuals to come on my show. Me and him had a discussion. And then he came on a second time and he debated Matt Slick. And now he's on here with Emilio Ramos. So that should be exciting. This is Emilio Ramos' first time coming on the Gospel of Truth. And he was actually on Revealed Apologetics. And I think that's how he got connected with me. Mr. Eli Ayala connected with me. And here you are, man. How's it going, Mr. Pastor Emilio? How's it going with you?
It's going great. Thank you so much for having me, Marlon. God bless you, brother.
All right. What's up, TJump, man? What's Mr. Jump? What's up with you, man? How you been?
Pretty good. How are you?
Doing well, man. You ready for this time? You ready, man? You think your argument's gonna hold up, man? You jumped in the Gospel Truth Octagon, man. What's up, man?
Yeah, for sure. The MMA reference, sure. Definitely.
All right, man. We're gonna jump into this, man. So I'm gonna give you guys a chance to introduce yourself before we jump into this debate, man. And Pastor Emilio, if you don't mind, go ahead and give a quick introduction to yourself, man.
Oh, sure. Well, my name is Emilio Ramos, and I'm a pastor of Heritage Grace Community Church in Frisco, Texas. I also lead a ministry called Red Grace Media, and we have a YouTube channel that you can watch every Thursday night. We have a live broadcast and other things available there for you to watch and to be encouraged by. And so I've been doing Christian apologetics for quite some time now, going back to the late 90s, I suppose, and been doing a great deal of evangelism, open air preaching, apologetics, things like that. Most of all, just have a passion to see people come to the saving knowledge of Jesus Christ. And that's my hope tonight. My hope is that my debate partner tonight will see his need for Jesus, that he will repent of his sin and put his faith and trust in him, so that he doesn't perish, but that he inherits eternal life. And so I'm grateful for the opportunity. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Pastor, once again for coming on. All right, Tom, go ahead with a quick introduction to yourself, man.
Yeah, I'm TJump. I run a YouTube channel called Debate Religious Apologists, professors, philosophers from around the world on the reasons to believe in the existence of God, whether there are any. I believe religious apologetics is taking the position that God exists. It requires you to reject the consensus in pretty much every academic field on neurology, psychology, everything. It just doesn't work as an ideology, and it doesn't work in ethics either. The consensus in philosophy is that theism doesn't at all, and moral naturalism is a much better basis, which we can use as a grounds for morality with atheism. So atheism offers a better, as it does, a better basis of everything in reality.
All right. Thank you both for joining me this episode once again. All right, we're going to jump into this. All right, the topic of this debate is, can atheism give consistent and justifiable reasons for objective moral values? All right, this should be a great debate. Start with 10-minute opening statements, 5-minute rebuttals, and then we're going to jump into a 60-minute discussion between you two, followed up by, I think it's 5-minute closing statements, and then we'll have Q&A from the audience. Sounds good?
It's good.
Sounds good. All right, Tom, you're arguing the affirmative in this debate, man. So you're up first for your 10-minute opening statement, man.
Sure. So first, I'd like to start by saying most philosophers are moral realists, 56% or something like that, theists. So even though most, like 70-something%, don't believe in a God, they also believe in objective moral values without a God, no problem. It's a pretty common thing in philosophy. My view, the view I like, it's a naturalistic version of moral realism. Moral realists hold that there are objective, mind-independent facts and properties, and moral naturalists hold that the moral facts are natural facts. It's just objective moral naturalism. That's all it is. So moral realism is there is objective, independent. Metaphysical naturalism is that moral facts are natural facts. Epistemic naturalism, we can know moral claims are true in the same way we know about. And analytic naturalism is our moral claims are synonymous with certain claims in the natural sciences. Just to read this is essentially verbatim from the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy on moral naturalism. Moral naturalism is an attractive view as a form. It offers to make a robust sense of moral objectivity and moral knowledge, allowing for moral utterances to be truth apt in straightforward ways, and for some of them to. And as a form of naturalism, it is widely seen as preferable to rival forms of moral realism. Moral properties and facts realistically constructed, unpalatable or queer, as J.L. Mackie famously expressed it. A realist can seem committed to the existence of metaphysically and embarrassed by the lack of any plausible epistemic story of how he can come to obtain knowledge of them. The naturalist can offer to save realism, but eliminate that. Moral realism and general philosophical naturalism are both attractive views in their own right. Moral realism seems necessary to do justice to our sense of matter of opinion, and philosophical naturalism has proven to be the most successful project ever for advancing human knowledge and understanding. And while dispute realism and naturalism respectively, moral naturalism is a plausible conjunction of the two plausible views. In recent years, moral non-natural.
Hey, Tom,
much more discussion.
Sorry, Tom. It seems like your audio keeps skipping in and out. It's kind of jumping in and out.
That I can't really do anything on my end because on the camera, on the view it gives me, I'm not doing it. Only doing it on the thing that you put in. So it seems like it's working.
All right, let's do this. Go ahead, log out and come back in with the same link that I sent you and see if that corrects the issue.
All right, we can. No, seems like it's probably going to be doing the same thing. But
yeah, looks like it's doing it still. Like the audio's still doing it still. All right, let me close this out, Tom, and I'm gonna send you a new link, man, and see if that fixes the issue, man.
Okay.
Hold on, people. Let me send him another link real quick and see if I can fix this issue. Sorry, folks. Just trying to get his audio and everything straight. Log out. Hey, Tom, you there?
Yep, I'm here.
All right, still skipping around a little bit. Let's see if we can. All right, let's try to go ahead, Tom, and try to muscle through this and see if it behaves.
Are you broadcasting from vMix or are you using like OBS?
No, I'm broadcasting through vMix. You can go ahead where you left off at, and then we'll see if it behaves.
All right. Yeah. So there's been an increase in the popularity of arguments against that show that non-naturalist views of morality don't really work. And these arguments indirectly provide support for moral naturalism. If they are arguments that have non-naturalist position, then these arguments can then give us reason to say that morality is a naturalist. if we can show that the arguments do not or are against the fact that there are moral non-natural facts that don't work. And there are several proposed to do this. The first is that the first argument against normative non-naturalism concerns supervenience over the natural. Then all metaphysical possible worlds in which, like, if all worlds are natural, have facts, the same physical facts, be moral and some wouldn't be if there are some non-physical things there. So, like, if you have two worlds, one where a guy kills someone else and facts and nothing but the physical facts, and the other one has this other moral non-physical thing to it, why would it be more? Because it seems like they're going to be morally significant in both cases, regardless of this non-physical fact. And if that moral non-naturalism doesn't work, because if in a world with just purely physical facts, there's still going to be a moral action taking place. Primary arguments against moral non-naturalism. I think that can sum up my introduction.
All right, Emilio, you got it, man, for 10 minutes, man.
For 10 minutes. All right. Thank you very much. Well, first of all, thanks again for the opportunity. And I want to thank my debate partner, Tom. Thanks for coming on. I just want to kind of give a little bit of just some bullet points as I see the issues. I was trying to kind of grapple with his opening statement there a little bit. But let me just begin by saying that according to Tom and the things that I've heard, I don't know Tom personally, but based on everything that I've heard from Tom so far, is that Tom believes that any involuntary imposition of the will is an immoral act. And so on the basis of that, we have to ask whether or not Tom actually has a proper foundation for morality. I would say no, he does not. Immorality, of course, implies some kind of morality, and morality applies, of course, some kind of standard of morality by which it can be measured. I don't think that more realism is a legitimate standard in and of itself, because more realism does not stand on its own. It implies various other branches of philosophy. I guess we can get to those. But involuntary imposition is not always negative as well. I think just on the face of it, everybody understands that doctors, police, parents, other people engage in all sorts of acts that involve involuntary impositions of the will on others, patients, criminals, children, etc. At times, we can even make a case that involuntary imposition of the will may in fact prove to be not only not immoral, but it can actually prove to be the highest form of virtue when a person's will is when we impose ourselves on a person's will involuntarily for a certain reason. Therefore, it makes it not a vice, but a virtue. So obviously, we could say that with some things on a major scale, like just war, for example. And so the statement is also a metaphysical statement, because the statement reflects the language of what is, not what ought to be, even though we're talking about ethics. When Tom says that every involuntary imposition of the will, quote, is immoral, does Tom believe that the metaphysical reality of morality, given his commitment to physicalism or naturalism or realism in his case, and even according to his potential probability arguments that he gives for various kinds of ontology, as he's done. He says that any ontology could work, idealism, solipsism, or dualism, and doesn't matter, doesn't affect his worldview. I would say that it does. I would say that his metaphysics, his ethics, all of it is informed, backed up, and undergirded by some kind of ontological claim. And so, again, I would say that Tom often commits these, what I think to be logically fallacious statements regarding morality. For example, with a conversation he had with Adam Friended, I think that's how you pronounce his name, Tom also says there is no proof of objective morality. And so sometimes Tom engages in doublespeak. Everything that I've been able to research, that I've been able to document based on the things that he says. Again, Tom says that like dark matter, quote, there is no answers to what morality really is. But if that's the fact, then how does Tom formulate his understanding of any involuntary imposition of the will being an immoral fact or moral act of some kind? It's like dark matter. If we do not know what morality is, why predicate about morality at all? It seems that the more that Tom talks about morality, let alone universal morality, based on intuition or anything else, the worse the philosophical problem becomes in his worldview. And again, hypothetical solutions that are given by Tom are not solutions at all. Tom does not really believe and any of these hypotheticals that he gives. But of course, this is what makes his position so irrational. It's not coherent. It's not actual, because he surrenders ontology, and I hope to get into that. But because he surrenders ontology, his claims about epistemology or ethics is reduced to absurdity. He doesn't know these things to be true. That's why he has endless possibilities of ontology, endless possibilities of what is actually possible. But he doesn't know them for certain. So in reality, Tom's sense of morality is rooted in humanism, back of which is an evolutionary view of man, where evolved pond scum learns to behave in a certain way. But if we are just evolved pond scum or stardust, or choose whatever cosmological analog that you want, ultimately, man is without meaning, without morals, without beauty. But if ethics stems from humanism, then ethics are arbitrary, conventional, subjective. And like man, ethics are in process, so that rape may be wrong today, but not tomorrow. In fact, Tom should know that, because in one of his programs with Godless Girl, a young lady that I do not know, I've never heard of before, but on this program, the guest from her particular branch of atheism attempted to reconcile rape and how it could be, on the one hand, good, but on the other hand, bad at the same time. And needless to say, that program didn't end well for her. But in reality, Tom's problems with morality and his inability to justify his thoughts on morality stem from the deeper issue being that of a worldview. Having abandoned God as the necessary precondition for his worldview, or just refusing to retain God in his knowledge, Tom is left to his own philosophical devices. And so this gets Tom nowhere. Merely claiming that any involuntary imposition of the will is an evil or immoral act does not make it so, unless Tom is speaking with some kind of divine fiat, which of course he's not. Without a transcendental basis for his ethical and epistemic claims, Tom's worldview remains completely arbitrary and is not to be taken serious. At times, sometimes you wonder if Tom really cares about truth at all, given his espoused worldview. If you think about his worldview, why should he care about truth? If ontology is dismissed at the outset, then what are we arguing about? In general, I mean, what's the argument about? If we can't know what is ultimately real, why argue about morality at all? And so he also places a great stress on sociology and tries to take a consensus of things, saying that moral progress, moral intuition is the way that we know what is rightly moral. He claims that LGBTQ people, for example, that we have progressed in this area. That's just one example, because they went from being treated poorly to being treated well, because we've evolved as a society, because although Muslims believe in throwing LGBTQ people off buildings and things like that, these are comments that he's made, that we have progressed as a society, and therefore we have deemed certain things to be morally repugnant based on a socio consensus of sorts. But again, on the basis of that litmus test, Christianity therefore should be, because Christianity has suffered persecution more than any other group in world history, we should categorize Christianity as the group of the lowest social standard, and should be immediately elevated to the highest group in society and given supremacy above all other groups as an expression of moral progress. That's if we take Tom serious, that sociology is going to give us morality. Now, however, this ethics experiment quickly implodes. If we begin to think about ethics from the sociological perspective, we will never arrive at a consensus on anything. The only thing that sociology will give us is an ethical standard as diverse and as discombobulated as society itself. Tom thinks ethics will somehow be developed positively, I think, based on the use of progress in technology. But if China tells us anything, is that you can have all the technology that you want in the world and yet produce barbarity and oppression on an industrial scale. And so these are quite confusing statements to me. And I would argue that they're the byproduct of rejecting the true standard of what is right and wrong. Of course, the triune God of Scripture, his self-attesting word, wherein God's law is contained, interpreted, and affirmed in a way that human beings, especially his people, can understand and apply to their lives. Scripture alone can tell us what is good and right, what are the sorts of moral prohibitions that endure for all time, what are the positive laws of the Bible that expire upon their covenantal fulfillment in the plan of God. But without this transcendental standard, Tom becomes law unto himself. But not only does Tom become a law unto himself, not only does Tom become, in a sense, self-regulating, self-governing, self-determining, and an arbiter of morals, meaning, and beauty, but so does Godless Girl. And so everybody, if Tom's worldview is to be taken serious, there is no ontology, and there's no way to bridge the gap between ontology and epistemology, for example, then Godless Girl is just as equally valid in stipulating that rape might be right, given certain conditions. And again, this is just her version of an anti-theistic morality, or the lack thereof. And this is the problem with worldviews. Worldviews are a thorny thing indeed. And so that's why I would say that in order for Tom to have a valid ethic, he has to have a valid worldview, and that is only available to him within the Christian worldview. And that's my hope tonight. My hope tonight is just to appeal to Tom, on the basis of the gospel, and show him that, in fact, when you deny the gospel, you are left to these kinds of arbitrary absurdities within your worldview, both philosophically, morally, and everything else. And so I hope to be able to get into some of those issues with Tom tonight. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Emilio, for the opening statement. Thank you, Tom, also for your opening statements. Now we're going to roll into our rebuttal round. We're going to get 5 minutes rebuttal from both parties. Tom, you're up for a 5-minute rebuttal, man.
Can you guys hear me right now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Question. Was the debate topic my model of morality specifically, or can atheism support objective morality?
Atheism. Can atheism support... Can it justify and have consistent reasons to hold to objective morality?
Yeah, so essentially he didn't address the topic at all. He just talked about morality, and addressing my specific morality, he completely misrepresented it entirely. So he didn't actually address anything about the topic. Like, my ontology independent, that doesn't mean there isn't an ontology. It means that it's true regardless of what the ontology is. It's like, for example, if I say the argument, I think, therefore I am, that's true even if it's the world's physical, or if it's idealistic, or if it's what the ontology is, because the statement is still going to be true regardless of the ontology. So I'm not getting rid of ontology. I can just say I don't true regardless. We just apparently just didn't understand that and thinks I'm just getting rid of ontology. Like, of course stuff exists, so I'm not getting rid of ontology. Nihilist, so she thinks that nothing can be known, and knowledge nihilist. So I don't think you should use her as an example of anything. It's ridiculous. So apparently he rejects the consensus of experts in pretty much every academic field. Like, they all reject the God and have perfectly no problem justifying knowledge or ethics or morality or truth without God. It's easier without a God, because God causes more problems than any other worldview. It's completely why the vast majority of experts reject it. So can atheists offer an objective basis of morality? Well, yeah, it's pretty simple. There's lots of different ways to do it. It's theism that doesn't work at all. Theism is a failure of offering a basis of objective morality. The gospel is just wrong in almost every way imaginable. It got everything wrong. Especially on morality, just justifying slavery and murder and rape, and so clearly Christianity is out. It's not even an option on the table as being a basis of objective morality. Theism doesn't work either, because we know the Euthyphro dilemma and other things invalidate the possibility that it can be grounded in a being like that. The only is by having a ideal world, essentially like a perfect triangle, platonic abstract kind of a thing, where what it would mean to live a life, and then we're trying to build the world to represent that and give as many people as possible that. He accused me of doublespeak. Like, there was nothing I said and there was doublespeak. He just misunderstood all of the statements. Involuntary imposition of will is immoral because there's always a more moral option, which is allow everyone's will to just on anyone. So, for example, if everyone gets their own universe and they can do whatever they want with it, then there's no reason for war. So there's no reason to kill anybody. So imposing on them is immoral. Like, why would you start a war in a place where it's physically impossible to start a war? So if it's physically impossible to hurt people, then there's no justification for actually hurting people in self-defense, because they can't hurt you anyway. the criterion of involuntary imposition of will is a superior moral criterion than what he espoused, because what he's espousing doesn't work as moral. It's just, so to summarize, like he didn't address the topic. He goes against the consensus on every academic field. He didn't represent my position accurately, and probably shouldn't use Godless Girl as an example of anything, because she's ridiculous in a lot of my rebuttal.
All right, thank you, Tom. All right, Emilio, you're up for your 5-minute rebuttal, man.
No, I'm a little bit of a disadvantage because his microphone is still cutting out really bad, so I'm catching like every other word, and so I feel like I'm debating with one hand tied behind my back. But I understand technical problems, but I just let you know. So, Tom, if I do not get your statement 100% correct, I'm sorry. It's probably because half of your sentences I'm not hearing them. So I'll try to do the best that I can, if I can. Okay. When I talked about answer, the question today is about atheism. The problem is that there is not a monolithic understanding of atheism. I mean, several times atheists will make that statement that they're representing a particular understanding of atheism, that in fact they don't understand atheism to be a certain thing, or they don't agree with, let's say, a textbook definition of atheism. They don't believe it to be a rejection of the Christian God or rejection of a God at all, that it's just a stipulation of a lack of belief. So there is no monolithic understanding of atheism. I can only deal with TJump's particular understanding of the topic tonight. Okay. And so just again, in the sense of ontology and epistemology, to me, I just simply don't accept Tom's understanding that he has an ontology. I'd like to hear what it is, because I haven't yet. I've heard several videos and several instances in which Tom says that he does not have an ontology. I mean, you'd have to correct me on that, Tom, but I've heard you repeatedly say that you don't have an ontology, that you're open to any ontology: realism, solipsism, dualism. And I've yet to hear you actually pick one and stick with one and defend one. And so I can only go on the basis of your claims. I'm not trying to misrepresent you. And the reason why I brought up the example of Godly Squirrel is just to show you what happens when you don't have an ultimate standard of right and wrong. When you're left to stipulate your own morality, you end up with, well, here's the thing: if you don't have an ultimate transcendent standard of morality, when morality is what Tom made sense, because here's the thing: Tom does not represent, he doesn't represent even other realists, or he doesn't represent other atheists or agnostics. He says that he doesn't contradict himself. However, repeatedly, I have heard Tom say on the one occasion that he represents an atheist position, and yet in another video, he'll say he represents the agnostic position. And so those two things to me are not compatible at all. I don't think that you should to claim atheism, as far as the way that I understand atheism, and I understand atheism to be the rejection of the Christian God on the basis of various lines of evidence, arguments, things like that. That is not an agnostic position. And so for him to say that he doesn't engage in double talk, I mean, I think that is. Also, he talks about, again, he makes these general, broad sweeping statements about Christianity getting everything wrong. I mean, that's a nonsensical statement, completely nonsensical statement, and a straw man argument. It's just an ad hominem attack. These are logical fallacies. Talking about, he would have to be specific what he's talking about, of course, where the Bible justifies things like rape and other things, slavery, in the way that he understands that. Of course, as within a Christian worldview, I would say that only a Christian can actually give a justified answer as to what is wrong with slavery in certain instances, and why it was right for slavery to exist under, let's say, the theocracy of Israel, et cetera, et cetera. Of course, the Euthyphro dilemma has been answered repeatedly by Christians over and over again. Of course, we understand morality that streams out of the very moral character and very moral nature of God. It's the very moral attributes of God that gives birth to morality in the first place. And again, this one thing that you'll hear repeatedly from Tom over and over again is hypotheticals, that the world could be this way, it could be that way. But if we're dealing in hypotheticals, then nothing is known for certain. And so that's kind of the problem with hypotheticals. And that's something that I have found consistent over the years and talking with atheists is they love to deal in hypotheticals, flying spaghetti monsters, alternate universes, what could be a perfect world, a utopian world that doesn't exist, a consensus that nobody has ever arrived at, sociology that does not exist. He talks about sociology, he talks about consensus, but does he not know that the vast majority of the population of the planet Earth consists of theists of some kind? Of course, I don't think they're right or justified in their form of theism, but just as it is, the vast majority of the human beings on planet Earth are not atheists. They don't share. Tom's understanding of philosophy, his understanding of realism, his understanding of dualism, his understanding of ontology, metaphysics, ethics. They just don't. So he's definitely. You want to talk about consensus? You're completely out of the consensus. Most of people believe that God or some form of God or even gods, take Hinduism, for example. But if you just put together Hinduism, Buddhism, and Christianity, and speaking of Christendom on the broadest terms, that's not an atheistic worldview. The consensus is, if you want to go by that, the consensus is that atheism is false. I doubt he wants to stick to consensus. He says it's superior in every way. Well, of course, that's the burden of proof is on you to show that. It's not superior to me. I don't see how you have given us the basis for morals, meaning, and beauty. So I think that's still to be determined. So thank you.
All right, thank you both for those rebuttals. Appreciate you, man. All right, we're gonna have so now we're transitioning to our 60-minute discussion between you two. Hopefully the audio is not too bad. Tom, I messaged.
If it is, I'll just have to ask Tom to repeat himself.
Okay. All right. Well, try to muscle through it. But anyway, we'll have a 60-minute discussion. Everyone out there in the audience, if you have any questions, let's get those questions in. As you hear them, the discussion, get them in because I'm sure these guys will be ready to answer them. All right. With that said, you guys have it for 60 minutes, man.
Yeah, so first thing I wanted to mention was that consensus is a consensus of experts in the field, not just a majority. So just saying lots of people believe it isn't an argument. Saying the majority of experts who understand the field is an argument. That actually qualifies as evidence.
The consensus.
Secondly,
the consensus of. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Secondly, like again, I have said I have not about what I said. It's by my definition, I'm an atheist, and then by other people's definition, they like to use the term agnostic. So I use the term agnostic because that's when there's nothing inconsistent about that. Saying I use different words in different debates, they have different contexts. They're not in any way contradictory. You just have quoting me in different contexts doesn't in any way show a contradiction there. It just shows you don't understand the context. Godless Girl is not a representation of God. So saying if you don't believe in God, it leads to Godless Girl is insane. That's completely batshit crazy. Like, no, but Godless Girl is just, it's a poisoning the well, something like that, where you just ridiculous example saying that, oh, hey, oh, no, it's a reductive ad absurdum. You pick up the most ridiculous example you can and say, well, if you don't get God, you lose this. Like, no, most philosophers, the most reasonable are atheists. The most Royal Society of National Academy of Sciences, 95% atheists. The most intelligent people in the world, most accomplished, Godless Girl, if you dismiss God.
Okay, I didn't know if that was a statement you want me to respond to any of those points, Tom, but all I'm saying is that Godless Girl is what happens when you stipulate that ontology is up for grabs, when you stipulate that morality is up for grabs if it's not rooted in some sort of transcendental statement.
That's not true at all. Again, Godless Girl has nothing to do with those claims at all. There are people who are moral anti-realists who are not as crazy as Godless Girl. The Godless Girl
doesn't matter,
insane.
but who are they? Well, first of all, calling Godless Girl crazy already presupposes a standard by which something is measured to be crazy, whether ethically, philosophically, morally,
and we can have that
logically.
without God, so that's not a problem.
I don't see how you can. You can say that, but you haven't shown how.
She's
free to stipulate whatever worldview she wants, though, right? Isn't she free to stipulate whatever worldview she wants?
Sure, and you can do that with a God, too.
Yeah, because again, what I'm saying is that when you talk about a consensus, how do you overcome that? I mean, do you understand that right now in places like Saudi Arabia, the Grand Mufti of Saudi Arabia, for example, who's basically like the Pope of Saudi Arabia, would say that it is a Muslim right for Muslims to have child brides. It's not a consensus in Saudi Arabia.
Consensus is a consensus of experts.
Do you believe?
Not an ad populum.
Okay. Do you believe that?
Is he an
Hold on a
expert?
second.
Is he an expert
Is
in
he
the
an
field
expert
of
in what?
philosophy and ethics? The field of philosophy and ethics. Does he know? Does he know anything about it?
Oh, he would definitely. Well, he would claim to be because his philosophy
I don't
and
care what
ethic
he
is rooted
claims.
in
Like,
divine transcendence.
does he have a PhD in ethics? Does he have a PhD in ethics?
No, that doesn't. No, he doesn't. But just because you have a PhD in ethics, I mean, I think that's a false appeal to authority. Are you telling me that based on?
Wait a second there.
Are you telling me? Hold on a second. Are you telling me? Hold on a second. Are you telling me that you base everything on the basis of experts?
No, I never said that. So experts' authority is a real evidence. You can do that. You can say, here is an expert and here's their position. That's evidence. It's not to authority.
Right. So they don't determine. They don't determine.
No, wait,
they don't determine
wait.
morality. They don't
Wait.
determine ethics or what is
No,
real.
of course not. No one does that. So again, is only a fallacy if you're appealing to a false authority. If they're an actual authority, you can do that.
Okay, so the authorities, the PhDs that study biblical theology, inspiration, textual criticism, transmission, canonicity, archaeology, paleontology, the experts that stipulate all these things having to do with religion, all the experts say that God exists. Are you ready to accept God?
They're experts in the field of, not in the
In the field
of
of
God's
what? I'm sorry,
existence.
your mic cut out. Your mic cut out. They're experts in the field of what?
Biblical studies. So if
Correct.
I could ask them about the Bible, but they'd tell us nothing
Okay.
about the way the world is.
But that's an assumption based on your worldview and your pre-commitments to an anti-biblical.
Completely wrong. So
in what way?
That's the consensus of historians. Historians say that history.
The consensus
can't tell
of
us about
historians
ontology.
based on who? That's a viciously circular statement you just made.
What are you talking about?
A consensus on historians. Well, who decided who the historians that build the consensus? I know many historians, and they have historians like Will Durant, historians like Philip Choff, historians like Justo Gonzalez. I can give you historian after historian after historian, and yet they would testify to the historical reliability of things like the Bible. Would you allow that?
Sure.
Or do they have to be non-Christian historians?
What is the consensus? And they could quote like Michael Licona, who said, the majority of biblical scholars and historians hold to it that the study the bounds of a historian acting within their professional capacity. Like the consensus says, no.
You know what will help me? You know what will help me, Tom? You know what will help me? If you can do me this favor, you talk fast enough to do this. I'm being serious. When you say something, if you can say it in two different ways, that way, if your microphone cuts out in the first way that you said it, I might be able to hear it in the second way that you said.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm sorry. I'm Marlon. I'm doing the best that I can, just because I keep missing like every other word. So I do apologize about that.
Yeah, I understand. I can see it.
Just reiterate what you're saying. Reiterate what you're saying and say it a couple times again, and then I'll get it.
It would be possible, like, to just on a different server that we can actually work with, because this is not working at all. I've tried to like make the same cut off every time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm trying to power through it. I am getting some of what you're saying. I'm getting the gist of what you're saying. And so, I'm willing to go forward until,
well, it's like
we can try to understand each other. We're on bad phone call, but we'll make it work.
Yeah. I keep trying to make the points, and it's like breaking up in the middle, and you don't ontology. Like ontology, ontology. I've said I'm a materialist every time, but the point of the argument is that it's.
Wait, I've heard you say on videos you're not a materialist, that you're not a naturalist, you're not a physicalist.
No, I've always said that. I've always said I am that. I don't know where you heard me say I wasn't. I said that my.
Yeah.
So I keep cutting out. Like I keep trying.
I'll send you the link.
Is it possible you can use your cell phone?
Sure. Can I call in?
Yeah, you could call in with your cell phone. I think that.
Make sure you got batteries.
I mean, as far as obviously I desire the video too, but is it possible you can use the camera on your phone and the audio on your phone to call in?
Possibly. How do I do that?
All right, so just go to www.vmixcall.com, or you can just click the link that you are using currently. You can go to the messenger that I sent the link in, and you can just come in through that same link, and it'll bring you right back.
All right, I'll try that. Is it showing up? Hey, Marlon, is it showing up? I called in.
That sounds good.
Yeah, it sounds good.
Well, I'm still
See,
talking on
sure.
my mic for my computer.
Yeah,
Can
it's
you hear me
still
on the
going
phone,
out
too?
because it's. I guess the issue is that it's trying to pick up. If you're calling on your phone and if you're still trying to use your mic, it's not going to work right. I don't think, because your camera's your phone's gonna use your camera and your mic in order to call in.
Yeah, I'm going to close my computer out once I get in on phone call, but I called in on the link you sent. Is it coming through like on my phone? Do you see my phone in TJump 2?
Yeah. Yeah, I see you now. And I hear you, but I'm not sure if are you using the audio from your mic right now or the audio from your
Mic.
phone right now? All right.
Now I'm using the audio for my phone. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can still probably hear you through your mic. I think your mic is still picking it up.
Can we just try it again, different program sometime?
Hold on, man.
Marlon, do you have Streamlabs?
Streamlabs? No, I don't. This is the only thing I use. This and Skype. I could bring you in through Skype, but you don't have Skype, right?
Is there a no login option on Skype?
I could bring you. What do you mean? Is there a long? What do you mean?
Like on most web browsers, you just put in the link. You don't have to log in or anything. You don't, like Skype, I think requires you to have a actual login. I don't have a login.
Let me see if I can. I think only Skype is going to ask you to create an account and all this stuff. So let me.
Yeah, can we just back out for another day because the audio problem is just really bad.
Let's try one more thing, Tom. Let's close this link out. Let's close it totally out, and then I'll send you a new link, and then just come in through your cell phone.
All right.
Sorry about this, Pastor, man.
Hey, it is what it is. Fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, patience, peace, kindness, gentleness, self-control.
Yeah, exactly. Let me see if he come in through his phone, because it seems like he's still picking it up through.
Yeah.
Because he just tried to call in, and I think that's what he just did.
Hey, Marlon, are you still there? Because I can't hear you type.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah. I mean, I've
Okay.
muted my mic.
Making sure.
So be typing all loud.
Is he calling? You think he's calling or he's not calling?
Yeah, he's trying to call in, but it's not picking it up.
Okay. Too bad.
I don't know what the deal is here. Let me see.
You should have just went with that Skype, man.
Yeah, I don't think he. Let me see something real quick.
Okay, brother. What do you think, man?
All right,
You'll call me
hold
back,
on,
or?
Nah, hold on. I got him. Let me tell Tom to hold on. Hold on 1 second.
Okay.
Can you guys hear me? Oh,
Yeah, we can hear you, Tom.
I can hear him.
all right. Testing. Is that quieter now? Echo?
Sounds good to me.
Yeah,
All
sounds
right,
good.
cool.
All right. So yeah,
like
it
it's
looks like
still
it looks like
freezing.
your video skipping a little bit, but your audio is very consistent. I think
Yeah,
that's
who
the
cares
most
about the
important
video,
thing
huh?
anyway.
Okay,
Yeah,
all right,
so
cool. That works
I
then.
think we're good to go.
The video's like totally frozen. Can you guys still hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you fine.
Yeah,
All right, all right.
All right, so you guys got it, man. You guys continue the conversation. Man, I'm not sure where you guys left off at, but there you guys.
yeah. Where to pick up?
Yeah, so the ontology thing where you keep saying I don't have an ontology. Like I definitely do have an
No, you
ontology. I am
keep
a
saying no. You
materialist.
keep
Every
saying
time
you
I
don't
say
have an ontology on your videos. Maybe
no,
I'm
no,
just
that's
listening to all
those
your
are only
videos
for the
wrong.
sake of an argument. Like so it's only
Oh, okay.
in an am I still cutting out?
No, you're
No,
good.
your
Go
Am I still
ahead.
audio's
cutting
fine.
out? Okay. So
Yeah.
so so I say I don't have an ontology for the sake of an argument. Like the argument is true regardless of the ontology you put in. It doesn't matter which ontology you use. So 1 + 1
Okay.
= 2 is going to be true if materialism is true, or if idealism is true, or if dualism is true. It's ontology invariant. It doesn't matter how you change the ontology, the argument stays the same. So when I'm saying I don't have an ontology, it's for that argument. It doesn't matter what ontology you use, you get the same result.
I
I still have an
disagree. Well,
ontology. I'm a
I
materialist,
appreciate.
but you don't doesn't
Sure.
matter.
Okay. Yeah, I appreciate that. I don't agree. I definitely don't agree. I think your ontology definitely can determine everything that you say regarding on the epistemological level. I think they're interrelated. They're codependent. They're involved. They inform each other. And so, if you're a materialist, are you a monist? Are you an atomist? How do you see reality?
Well, I can prove that false just immediately again because 1 + 1 = 2 doesn't change regardless of your ontology. It's true ontology invariant. So I can prove that
What if
false
you're in the
immediately.
Buddhist? Right. What if you're in the Buddhist ontology and everything is Maya? Everything,
One
in
plus
other
one
words,
equals
everything's
still
illusion.
two. Still
No,
two.
it's
1 + 1
illusion.
still equals 2.
It's not to them because it's an it's an illusionary equation. I mean, I would
They can
disagree
say
with
that.
it, but they wouldn't.
That's nice, but it's still true. Like that doesn't matter if their opinion on it doesn't change the fact it's true.
I'm just giving you an example of how ontology definitely affects your epistemology. You may not accept it, neither do I, as far as we're talking about Buddhism, but I'm just giving you an example. But my other question is this, Tom, if you're a materialist, are you a monist or an atomist?
Uh, Neither. I don't take a position on that. I don't know what the fundamental
You,
nature of reality is, whether it's one or many. Who knows?
so then you don't know if the fundamental nature of reality is materialistic or not.
I
You
don't
want to
know anything with
retract your
absolute
statement?
certainty.
You want
That's what
okay,
the
so you want
evidence
to
indicates.
right, so you want to retract your statement that you're a materialist, or would you go back to
No,
being agnostic? If you don't know
no,
the
I'm going to
fundamental nature
stick with
of
science on
reality,
this
why
one.
would you claim? Hold on a second. But if you don't know the fundamental nature of reality, would you take a materialist position? Doesn't that assume that you have some grasp on the fundamental nature of reality?
No, it assumes we have evidence that there is material stuff that exists, and we don't have evidence of anything else that exists, so we can inductively infer material
If you
stuff is the way the nature
right,
of reality is.
if you don't know the fundamental nature of reality, how do you know that the evidence that you're looking at is subject to the laws of logic, induction, and such?
Because they're true ontology invariant. You can't get an ontology that loses them. They're always true. They're just languages to describe reality.
Sounds
So it
arbitrary to
doesn't
me, but
matter.
um,
Well, that's the
it doesn't.
opposite of
I mean,
arbitrary, actually.
so you don't know the nature of true reality, but you want to talk about things not being arbitrary. I don't know how that follows.
Because it's true independent of ontology. Like I think, therefore I am is true, and that can't
Is it
ever be
true?
false, no matter
Okay,
what,
but
no matter what ontology.
is it is it if it is independent of ontology, that's an ontological claim. And if that's an ontological claim, that you
No,
just refuted your own position.
no, I'm not saying there isn't an ontology. I'm saying it's ontology independent. Those are not the same thing. Like I don't understand why you think those are
Sure. I mean,
contradictory
we can go
terms.
on
Like
with the
saying that
conversation, Tom, but yeah, we can go on with the conversation, Tom, but you would understand from my perspective as a Christian why I'd have a problem with that, because the minute you surrender knowledge on the level of denying the possibility of knowing the true character of reality, for example, everything that you stipulate and predicate from here forward is subject to the same line of questioning. It's an infinite regression at some point, and it really makes the conversation quite futile. You can say that you're a materialist, but you don't know in reality if materialism is true. That's just a pragmatic position that you take for certain, for
nope,
certain
that's not how
pragmatic
knowledge
reasons.
works. That's not how knowledge works. That's just a misunderstanding of what knowledge is.
How so?
Because you don't need to have absolute certainty to have knowledge. Like I can know things without having absolute certainty.
Are you absolutely certain about that?
I don't need to be. It's called fallibilism.
Okay, are you absolutely certain that it's fallibilism?
I don't need to be. Every time you ask that, I'm going to say I don't need to be because it's fallibilism.
Right. So that's what I'm saying. That's called an infinite regression. You're not making a
No,
meaningful
it's not an
statement.
infinite
It's
regression at all. It's
meaningless.
just because you keep asking the same question, which I don't need to, which is comes to the same answer every time. You just keep asking the same question.
Okay.
So
All right. I would say
regress.
it's question begging. I think it's a self-refuting position. I think it is an infinite regression.
Which one of the premises is in the conclusion? Because there isn't. That for it to be question begging, one of the premises has to be in the conclusion. So demonstrate it, or else you're just making crap up.
Well, because you have yet to justify your claim that something is a certain way, whether it's fallibilism or materialism or anything else.
That wasn't the claim. You said it was question begging. For it to be question begging, one of the premises has to be in the conclusion. If you can't demonstrate that, then you're just making shit up.
I would say the broader worldview you're operating off of is question begging, because it assumes a certain ontology that you haven't proven yet, and that you actually claim you cannot prove.
Which premise is in the conclusion? If you can't show that, then you're just making shit up. You can't just say it's question begging without actually demonstrating it's question begging. Show me which premise is in the conclusion.
I don't know that you formulated a syllogism where you gave me premise 1, premise 2, and a conclusion.
Then why are you concluding it's question begging? It seems like you're just making shit up.
All right, let's try to chill on the language, man. Let's be good on the language, man.
Yeah.
Thanks, sir.
Yeah, Tom's usually pretty good on the language, and so I'm a little bit surprised that he's having to drop profanity while we're talking. If that continues, I'll just turn it off. But again, I think it is question begging. You have not proven the fact that materialism is true. You have not proven the fact that ontology and epistemology works in the way that you are saying that it works. You have not proven, for example, that 1 + 1 equals 2 in every scenario, in every ontology, in the Buddhist reality or the lack thereof, in the Buddhist Maya world, whatever. These are just assumptions. These are just assertions.
No, those are analytic truths. Those are proven to be true. We can actually have the proofs.
Analytics is an illusion, analytics is an illusion in the Buddhist worldview.
No, it doesn't work that way. I mean, you claiming that is irrelevant. It's still a proof. So whether or not you accept the proof,
I don't represent Buddhism. I'm just telling you that not every ontological position leads you to the same sort of Aristotelian conclusions.
You can say those words, but they're inconsistent gibberish. They do not work. Okay,
well, tell that to the Buddhist
you can say those words, but they don't work. We have a proof: 1 + 1 = 2. So you kept saying my position is question begging. Demonstrate it. Demonstrate which premise is in the conclusion of materialism.
Well, it's question begging. It's question begging, Tom, in the sense that you said, when I asked you, are you a monist, atomist, or something else? You said, I don't know. I don't know the true nature of reality. Okay, so when you make a statement about reality, aren't you begging the question that reality is such and such without knowing? As a matter of fact, it's a total self-refuting position.
No.
How is it not a self-refuting position when you deny the possibility of knowing reality, and yet you're stipulating something about reality?
Because I'm not making a deductive absolute certainty claim. I'm not saying I am certain that reality is this way. I'm saying that I have reason to believe reality is this way.
Oh, okay. So is it a meaningful? Right. Okay. If you don't need to be certain, then is it a meaningful statement or a meaningless statement? Can we discard it since it's not certain?
You don't need it to be certain. No, it's perfectly meaningful. You don't discard it because it's not certain. That's not how language and knowledge work.
Not acceptable. That's not acceptable for me at all. I mean, philosophically,
so
if you find that acceptable,
that's your problem. In every field of logic and science and rationality, and everyone who understands these things. Okay,
I disagree. I disagree with
flat earthers. That's fine.
Well, I disagree with you. I think there are plenty of philosophers that would not accept that. That's just unacceptable, philosophically speaking.
I don't know any. None that I have.
Well, I could cite. I could.
Van Til.
Sure, I could. Oh, of course. Van Til, Bonson. I mean, plenty of people.
Okay,
John Frame, James Anderson.
In the academic fields, okay. So you can be a flat earther.
What do you mean? Greg Bonson got a PhD from US. Hold on. Greg Bonson got a PhD for USC. They don't take his PhD serious?
Oh, they take his PhD seriously. They don't take any of his papers seriously. That's kind of the point.
Why? What do you mean? Then they shouldn't have.
Lots of crazy people.
Then they should not have admitted. Hold on a second. They should. If they don't take him serious, then they shouldn't have admitted his thesis into their journals, and yet they did. Sounds like an expert to me.
That's not
anyway, so
let's
move on. Let's move on from there. Tom, let's move on to something else. Okay. Are you an intuitionist? Because in a lot of your videos, you say that you know things based on intuition.
Intuition is a form of evidence. That's the consensus, again, in philosophy, the experts in the field. So, yeah.
Okay, when you appeared on a video with Eli Ayala, and he asked you how you knew that every involuntary imposition of the will was an immoral act, you said quote intuition, and you said quote moral consensus. When you say intuition, what kind of intuition are you talking about? Are you talking about Platonic intuition? Are you talking about Kantian intuition? Are you talking about intuition based on memory? Are you speaking about intuition based on sense perception? Which one is it?
Intuition is a feeling that people have that things are intuitively immoral. That's what moral intuition is. It doesn't have a Kantian, Humean perspective. It's just a feeling people have.
I
That's
didn't
the
mention Hume.
thing.
I didn't mention Hume. I said Plato, but in the Platonic scheme, intuition is relegated to what you remember or what you can recollect, versus the Kantian position would be that it's subject to sense perception. So it sounds like something like what you're dealing with is like a sensation of some form. But how did you get around the problem? Or have you figured out the problem yet? The fact that we don't all have the same intuition. Like I just mentioned, give you the example, Tom, that Muslims believe it is, according to their law, that it is a right for a man to have a child bride. Now, that's not my intuition. I hope it's not yours, but they would say it's intuitive, given their worldview and based on the way
Yeah, the
that
same is true of
anthropology is
all of
taught
our
there.
senses. So all of our senses we don't share.
Huh?
We don't see the same things in every cases. There are delusions and illusions and misconceptions, and people have damaged parts of your brains. None of that is a difficulty or a problem.
Okay, so when you say based on intuition, and then when people respond to the fact that, well, it's not, I don't intuit those kinds of things, the response that I've heard you say repeatedly is that, sorry, I can't help you if you don't understand that, whatever, torturing children for fun is immoral. I can't help you. So is that the way that we determine morality? It just is that way?
Nope, that's a complete misrepresentation of
No.
my position entirely. Like, if you can't understand why torturing children is wrong, yeah, you have a problem. I can't help you. But how I get to the conclusion that there is involuntary imposition of will is immoral is by using moral intuition and moral progress and following those to a conclusion of where they lead. And my thesis is that's where it leads.
So you
So two
begin with
different
moral
things.
intuition, and you begin with moral intuition, and you conclude with moral intuition.
I begin with moral intuition and I look where it leads.
Okay, but you said you said the way I get to moral intuition is that you begin with moral intuition. Is that not fallacious?
No. The way I get to involuntary imposition of will is wrong is I look at moral intuition and I try to describe those with principles, and the principle that I seem to be able to use to describe those is involuntary imposition is wrong. So I'm describing the
As a
intuition.
Okay, so but involuntary imposition of the will is wrong as a moral intuition. But you just said again, you have to rewind the tape, Tom, and listen to it. You just said again, I begin with moral intuition, and then you arrive at a certain notion of moral intuition. I mean, that to me sounds completely fallacious.
No.
What if I
This
said that?
is
What if I
super,
said the
super
same
simple.
thing as you? I begin with the God of the Bible. I end with the God
No.
of the Bible. Is the
No,
debate
no, no,
over?
no. You're not understanding. You're not understanding. So
Okay.
I see a phenomenon. There is a phenomenon in the world we see. We see these things. People have moral intuitions. And we want to, what is the common factor of moral intuition? So we create principles to describe the moral intuitions. It's not circular. We're literally describing the things we see. Obviously, we're going to begin with moral intuition, and then we're going to describe those things. See, like, well, what can we use to give it principles that describe what is the commonality of those things? So obviously, you're still going to be describing moral intuitions because that's literally what we're doing. That's not circular. That's literally what we're doing. We're describing moral intuitions. Like, what is the principle that connects these things? Like induction, you see a rock fall and you try to make a prediction about the rock falling, you're going to describe the rock. You're going to describe the patterns in the rock. That's what we're doing. We're doing the same thing we do with physics.
Okay, that's fine. I don't really know how else you can possibly claim that your worldview regarding ethics is meaningful once you've denied the idea that you do not know the way that ultimate reality works. Does that mean, I don't want to put words in your mouth, does that mean, Tom, therefore, that the attempt to discover what ultimate reality is and how ultimate reality works, does that mean therefore that is that's futile? We cannot know the nature of ultimate reality?
Those are two different things. So again, I have a
Okay.
theory of the way ultimate reality is based on evidence. And if my theory is right, then everything I'm saying is meaningful.
How could
So
you
I
ever
can
know if
say,
it's right? Can I ask that
what,
question? How
ask what
could you
question?
ever know if it's right? Can I ask that? Is that a legitimate question?
Yeah, but you don't need to. Again, that's irrelevant. So I can say, if
So
I'm right,
then,
hypothetically, I don't need to know I'm right. I'm just going to say, if I'm right, then here are the consequences of if I'm right. And I can say, that's meaningful. Here's the meaningfulness comes from if I'm right. If this is the nature of reality, then here's the meaningful consequences. So if I say, if I'm a materialist, I think that material is all there is, and morality is a natural property of the world, and the moral law is that any involuntary imposition of will is wrong, then we now have a
okay.
complete logical, coherent system of objective morality in a materialistic worldview. I don't actually need to know any of it's true. That's not relevant. I can just say, if this is true, then it is meaningful.
Can you explain a little bit of that? Maybe explain that to me a little bit more, because I think I just heard you say that morality is a natural byproduct of the world, something like that. I don't want to misconstrue what you're saying.
Yeah, I don't know. It was in my introduction. I don't know how
No,
much of
you
it you
just said it
caught
right
because
now.
of the mic problem.
I'm saying just a sentence ago. You just said that morality
Yeah.
is
I'm
a
quoting my
byproduct of
intro.
the
I'm
natural
quoting my
world.
intro.
Okay,
The moral naturals, moral facts are natural facts. Yes, that was in my
okay.
intro.
When you say natural facts, what are you talking about?
I don't know. What do you mean?
Okay,
Wait, what?
maybe I
Facts,
should ask you the
physical,
question.
materialistic, non-spiritual stuff?
Oh, okay, so are you saying moral laws are? I'm trying to understand, when you say nature, are you saying that moral principles come from what we find in nature?
Yes, that is correct. That is moral
Can
naturalism.
Okay, but when you say nature, are you talking about the trees, the rocks, the moon, the stars? What are you talking about?
Yes, physics, all of physical stuff, nature, natural, physical,
Okay,
material stuff.
okay, Tom, can you
Moral
bring me?
stuff is
Can
in
you
man.
show
Yeah.
me? Okay, can you show me a natural law growing on a tree somewhere?
No, I can't show you gravity growing either because it's a law of nature that governs things, just like morality is.
Okay, so moral. Okay, but when you say that morality comes from the material world,
Yeah.
um, where can we observe that happening?
We observe it with our moral intuitions when we see bad things happen, just like we observe rocks falling when gravity happens.
That sounds to me like what you call it, but you haven't given me any example of how a tree or a rock or a star uh, produces or conveys or somehow projects morality into the physical world. That sounds
Well,
like.
again, they don't project morality. Morality is a law of nature, like gravity. They don't
Mhm.
come. Gravity isn't created by trees. Gravity is a fundamental part of reality itself. So, if morality does exist as a part of nature, it's a
So
fundamental
it's
part of reality
just.
itself.
Oh, okay. So it's just the way the world is.
Sort of.
Is that how we determine morality? It's just the way that it is, but it's not that way for everybody. I mean, not everybody looks at the world and say, "Oh, look, that's the way that it is."
Yeah.
Are
Electromagnetism,
you,
photons, is a part of reality, and not everyone sees them the same way. They have different kinds of eyes that see things differently. People are colorblind. The fact that people see things differently doesn't make electromagnetism not objectively true. So the fact that people see morality different doesn't make morality not objectively true.
so somebody says, "I looked at nature, and nature told me slavery is good, rape is fine, torturing children is not a problem." I got that from nature, and I received a moral intuition within myself that told me that these things were just fine. What how do you arbitrate between, let's say, yourself, who maybe you hold the opposite of that? What's the arbitration process between the two?
Same with science, novel testable predictions. Which one is good based on, we can say,
But he's
what if the
tested
moral
it.
principle is what I say it is? Here's how we will be able to make testable predictions about
Um,
intuition in
in
the
one
future.
Okay, give you an example. In one of your videos somewhere, you talk about psychopaths who do not have moral intuition.
But why? I just answered your question. Why are you bringing up a video?
To give you an example of what we're talking about.
Or you can just give me the example. Like I just answered your question. Like some people can
I'm
see
trying to get
correctly,
something
some people
more
cannot see
fundamental.
correctly.
I'm trying to get to something more fundamental. You're saying that we get moral intuition from nature, and I'm trying to tell you that there are some people, even according to you, who do not have moral intuition.
Yes,
What
I've already
happened to the
granted that and answered
psychopath?
that like 4 or 5 times. Some people are blind; they can't see, but that doesn't mean
Uh,
light doesn't exist. It's the exact same
how
thing.
do you know? How do you know that that person doesn't have a moral intuition? I mean, did you not know that Hitler had a pet and was kind to it?
Okay,
Was
they
was he
can they
not a
can have moral
psychopath?
intuitions
Was he a
too and just have them
psychopath or
be
not a
damaged. Like you
psychopath?
can be colorblind, you can still see and have mistakes. So people can have moral
Okay.
intuitions that are wrong, and they cannot have moral intuitions at all, like a sociopath, psychopath, and they can have moral intuitions that are right. And so you can have vision that is correct, you can have vision that's incorrect, and you can have vision that
So
you're
are
blind and
people
not
just
have
a
vision.
byproduct? Okay, so are people just a byproduct of their genetics in that sense? Like, because they, unlike you and I, maybe they're genetically, since it comes from nature, are you saying that somebody like Hitler, he's just genetically different and therefore he doesn't have the same moral intuition? Try to explain that to me a little bit better because I'm not understanding how, on the one hand, you and I can have a moral intuition that tells us that murdering masses of people is wrong, but somebody like Hitler has no problem doing it.
Moral intuition is just like vision. Moral intuition isn't objective morality. Objective morality is like a law of nature. It exists outside of us. It doesn't exist in us. Moral intuition is just the way we apprehend morality. So just like we can see things with our eyes and our eyes can get damaged and we don't see things, we feel things with our moral intuition and our moral intuition parts of our brains can get damaged and we feel things differently. That's just a part of our brain. It gets damaged like any other part of our brain.
So is Hitler a villain? Is he a victim? Is he just a byproduct of his genetics?
Yes,
How do you account for
every
his
human being is
psychopathic?
a byproduct of their genetics and
So he's a
social
victim. He's
upbringing.
not a villain. So he's just a victim. He's not a villain. What he did, there's really nothing wrong with what he did
No, it's
in the
still
sense
wrong.
that he's just acting out his genetics.
Yeah, he's acting out his genetics, but it's still wrong. You're still culpable, even if
Well,
you're
it's
just
not wrong
acting
to
out your
him.
genetics.
It's not wrong to him. You just said it's a byproduct of his genetics, so it can't possibly be wrong to him. So there's no
No,
way
that's
to say
not
it's
how culpability
wrong
works.
for
Like
some
again, in
people.
law,
Uh,
in law, it still applies. Even if you're like determined by your biology, your brain states, it's called compatibilism, a very common position in philosophy, the majority position in philosophy is you're still culpable of your actions, even if they're determined. There's not a contradiction there.
mhm. Okay. Yeah. So, in your idea of morality, is there, because you don't believe in an afterlife, you don't believe in a God that's going to judge you. Um, you mean to tell me that somebody like a petty thief and Hitler, they receive the same retribution for their crimes?
I
Is
don't
there any
believe in an
justice in?
afterlife. There is no retribution. Morality doesn't
Right?
be moral or immoral because of rewards. Like if you kill someone, it's wrong because you killed them, regardless of whether or not you're rewarded or punished. The rewards and punishment
Mhm.
don't add anything to morality. It's completely irrelevant to morality. It's just a feel good thing people want to add in there. Say, well, if I'm moral, I get rewards. Like that doesn't have anything to do with
Mhm.
morality. It's irrelevant.
I'm just wondering if you're okay with a kind of worldview that says a petty thief and a child molester in the end suffer no different fate.
Again, that's just a feeling that's irrelevant to truth or morality. Like something isn't moral because you get rewarded or punished for it. So the rewards and punishment to morality makes no difference to truth. It's not like, well, you get
Well,
rewarded
that
if you do
wasn't really
math
my
right. Like,
question.
no, no one
Yeah,
cares. The reality doesn't care about
right.
your feelings. Reality cares about truth.
I that wasn't my question. My question is are you okay with a worldview that sees no distinction between a petty thief and a child molester since they get the same punishment in the end? Let's say they both die. Let's say the petty thief, in matter of fact, the petty thief gets caught for his crimes, goes to jail. The child molester never gets caught, gets to enjoy a whole life of molesting children, but in the end, he suffers no punishment for his crimes.
Right. So what you
You
asked there
believe in a
was there's no difference between a petty thief and a child molester. No, that's wrong.
right.
One is more immoral than the other.
Why?
Whether they get
Why? How
punished
do you know
is
that?
irrelevant. It doesn't make it more wrong or less wrong whether or not they get punished. Reality still says this is more
Where are
wrong.
the
The punishment
okay?
doesn't change it. It
Where,
doesn't affect it in any
where
way.
did nature give us? Where did nature give us, according to your understanding of nature? Where does nature, without God, give us the kind of 10 Commandments or something like that by which we can measure a scale of depravity?
It's a law of nature like
What
gravity, so it's a part of the universe.
can you bring me that law? Can you bring it to me in a lab somewhere I can look at it?
Yeah,
The
that's the
scale of
kind of the goal is
depravity?
that. So yeah, again, the point of moral naturalism is that we can know moral claims are true in the same way we know about claims about the natural sciences, called epistemic naturalism. It was in my introduction, but I think you may have missed it because of the audio problems. So yes, we know of moral claims the same way we know of scientific claims, novel testable predictions.
Okay, so well, thank you. I appreciate it. I mean, I'm asking most of the questions, and so I don't know if you have questions for me, but I'm asking most of the questions, and I don't even know how much time we have left. I have some other stuff, and I think I'll leave it for my closing statement, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure. So the youth of our dilemma essentially disproves any possibility that there is a God-based morality. It says, is something good because God says it's good, or did God say it was good because it's good on some independent standard?
This has been
I'm
answered
asking you.
numerous times, but are you asking me?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, like I said, this has been answered numerous times, and the answer to that question biblically is quite simple, that morality is an aspect of God's character and his nature. Something is right only because God has revealed it, and what God has revealed stems from his nature.
Okay, and so his conscience has nothing to do with it then, it's his nature? Because if God's
In
nature
a
and his
sense, they're
consciousness are the same
synonymous.
thing, then through Leibniz's law of identity, then it's just good because God says so. They're the same thing. If there's some difference between God's nature and God's
Well,
consciousness, and then it's not.
right.
Then you're saying so God's only
It's
saying
good.
that it's moral because there's some part of his nature that he doesn't have a say in,
Sure.
and that's what it really is moral, is if that part of his nature. He's just telling us that's immoral, that it's moral.
Well, I mean, I don't. Yeah, in one sense, you can't go any further back than the eternal being, the infinite being God. You know, we call it the aseity of God, right? God sufficient within himself. And so, yes, all moral law that God has revealed, particularly eternal moral law, is rooted in his nature, back of which there's nothing. God is not correlative. He has no environment. There's nothing to measure God against. That's why God in the Bible swears against himself. There is nothing higher than God to measure something by. You've reached the point of something truly transcendental and fundamental. You can't go any further back. You may not
I
accept
mean,
it, but
like,
that's the
I'm
biblical
asking, like,
claim. And
is his
uh,
conscious is his consciousness and his nature aren't the same thing, right? Those are two separate things. Consciousness is a part of his nature, but there's more to his nature than just his
correct,
consciousness, right?
correct.
So his nature, which isn't conscious, is the grounds of morality, not his consciousness.
I wouldn't say that. His nature is conscious, I guess, right?
Well,
God is
if
simple.
all of his nature and his consciousness
God
are the
is what
same
he is
thing, then
all at
they are the
once.
same thing.
No, I wouldn't say that. I would
So
say
there's a
that
part of
God
his
is both
nature that isn't conscious because they can't be the same thing.
oh, no, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that in the same way that we would say God is omniscient and God is omnipotent, he is both, but that doesn't mean that they're the same thing. They're all part of his character,
Right.
his nature, and God is who he is in as a simple being with one eternal active vision. He knows everything all together and at once. But that doesn't preclude that he is not also at the same time omnipotent, omnipresent, or et cetera, et cetera.
Well,
I don't see any problem with God being both uh, a certain kind of God in relationship to his nature, and for God also to be conscious. I don't understand the
I'm
point.
not saying there is one. That's not what I'm asking. So he has
Okay.
multiple properties. He is conscious. That is a property. But his consciousness is different from his nature. His nature is other things, not just his consciousness. So, and then which one of these grounds is the morality? Is it his consciousness or is it his nature? Because it can't be both, and they can't be the same thing.
Well, it's his nature holistically taken comprehensively as a simple being. That's the answer. You may not like it, but that is the answer.
Well, that isn't an answer. So if, like Leibniz's
It
law
is
of
to me.
identity, if God's consciousness is the same as his nature, if they're the synonymous things, then there's no difference between the two, and you're just saying it's good because God says so. You're adopting the first premise of the first horn of the dilemma.
I can only
If
go.
there's
Oh no, well, I know I can only go as far back as Revelation allows me to, and as far
okay,
as
I'm
Revelation
not,
allows me to understand the being of God, I can't stipulate some relationship between the conscience, and the nature of God. Of course, God, part of God's nature is that He is conscious. Yes,
right. I grant that, and so I'm saying, which part of him does the morality come from? Is it the conscious part, or is it one of the other parts?
all of it, all of it, all of it. It's
Again,
all
that
that.
doesn't
It's
work because that's
his
Leibniz's law of
his
identity.
entire nature
If they're
all
the
at
same
once. It
thing,
works for me.
if they're the same thing, then you're
It's
just saying it's good because God says so.
No, I'm
You're just
saying it's
admitting the first
good
premise of
because
the horn. You're just admitting it.
no, what I'm saying is that it's good because God says so, and the reason God said so is because He cannot but say so, because these things are regulated by His nature.
Right, and that's a contradiction if his nature and his conscience are the same thing, because they're the same thing. They
I
can't.
don't
They can't
I
both.
don't see
He
that
can't be forced by his
I don't see
consciousness
that
to
that
do
follows.
something in his consciousness. It doesn't make any sense. Like, so if his consciousness can't tell us anything other than what his consciousness tells us, then there must be something independent of his consciousness that restricts his consciousness, because his consciousness can't be restricting his consciousness. That's the contradiction.
Mhm.
So if
No,
God's consciousness can't do something, there's something restraining it. Something is keeping it from doing something else. And it can't be the consciousness, because the consciousness isn't the problem there. It's got to be something
again,
else,
you're
something
trying to
non-conscious.
right. Right. Again, you're trying to think of a God in a composite form. God is not a composite. He is a simple being. And every time you attempt to portray the God of the Bible in composite categories, I will deny those categories. I will reject them, and I will not be holden to have to respond to that in one sense, because you're not talking about my God. You're making up. You're not dealing with God on His terms. You're not dealing
Oh, I'm only
with
talking
the
about your
argument
God. So I'm
itself.
talking about exactly what you said, because you just
Well, if you
said
were only
God's
talking about my
consciousness
God, then you know
can't do
He's
something.
simple.
You said
If
God's
you were
consciousness
talking about
can't do something because it's of his nature. But that's a problem, because if all of God is God's consciousness, then all of God is that thing that's being restricted, and there's nothing out to restrict it. That's a contradiction. It's literally logically impossible. You can't do that. You can't have it both ways. This is why, again, most philosophers reject the entirety of the theistic position, because it makes no sense. You can't have a consciousness that is restricted by itself. There has to be something else to do the restricting to make it not be able to do that. And if there isn't that
unless
thing,
that
then it makes
consciousness
completely gibberish
unless
no
that
sense.
consciousness belongs to a simple being, which you're not willing to grant.
Well, no, I'm happy to grant. I can grant anything you've just said, and it just doesn't work. I can demonstrate it's false. So even if
I don't think you
consciousness is a part of
can.
a simple being that is a single property or whatever, a single aseity, then that thing, the consciousness is that property. It is that thing. It can't be something else. So you can't say the consciousness is restricted, because the consciousness is the whole thing. It is the one property.
Yeah,
I'm
no,
not
I mean,
sure.
you're not using biblical categories, and so I don't know what to do at this point. I can only represent the God of Scripture. I can't represent a composite being. So,
I'm just granting your position. So I'm saying it's not a composite being. It's a single being. It has one property, the God property. And if that one property
Mhm.
can't say something is immoral, it's being restricted by something. But it can't be restricted by its own God property, because that doesn't make any
well, the Bible
sense.
says
So
he's
there has to be
restricted by his, well, the Bible says he's
what?
restricted by his own good pleasure, but he doesn't ever reveal. If you would, he doesn't reveal to us every aspect of his good pleasure, his will, what pleases him. There are some things about God that belong to God alone that we will never know. There's some aspects of God that will always remain a mystery. The Bible says that. Deuteronomy chapter 29, it says that some things belong to the Lord, and the things that he reveals to us, those things are the things in which we can know. There's some aspects of God we don't know. We don't know why. It's his good pleasure. It glorifies him, and that's as far as Christian theology will go to answer a question like, why does God do X or why does God do Z? Because it's according to his good pleasure. Well, why is it according to his good pleasure? Because it glorifies him. Well, why does it glorify him? Because it glorifies him, because he says so. I mean, that's it. That's as far as we can go. Unless you're God. I would say you can, even if God were to reveal it to you, Tom, because you're a finite being, you wouldn't be able to comprehend it. And so thankfully, he's given us revelation that we can comprehend.
Okay, but that didn't answer my question. So again, aspect means part. So if he has an aspect, then there's multiple parts to him. But if you're saying that
No,
God's
I disagree with
consciousness,
that.
God's property can't do something, it's restricted, then it has to be restricted by something else. Because if I
disagree
can't
with that.
restrict myself from not doing something. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
If
I
I
disagree
can't
with
lift
you.
the cup, it's not because
We just have to
I don't want
disagree
to.
that
Like,
we just have to disagree, man. You say God is comprised of parts. I say he's not.
oh,
I
I'm
can
not
tell you
saying
what the
anything.
Bible
I'm just
says.
taking every word you're saying and showing it's a logical contradiction. So I haven't made any claims about God. I'm
Well,
just saying the words you're saying don't work because they lead to contradictions in your own worldview. I'm doing an internal critique of your worldview. I adopt your worldview.
I don't think so.
Here's why it just completely fails.
No. Yeah, I don't think so. I think
That's
you've
what I'm doing.
constructed a straw man argument that has nothing to do with my worldview, that has nothing to do with my God.
I'm just taking your words like verbatim as much as possible. I'm saying you're saying God's consciousness can't do something. It can't.
I never said
It's
that.
determined to say certain things are moral.
God's consciousness would
Right.
never, God's consciousness and God's nature are one.
Oh, okay, but God's consciousness nature thing, his God property, is being restricted by his God
Himself.
property. His God property is restricting his God property.
Yes, that's right.
So
Sure,
it's
I
really
can accept
something is
that.
good because
His-
God says
his
so.
God property restricts his God property, and you would expect that of the triune God of the Bible because God is not contingent. God is not in any sort of correlative relationship to anything outside of himself. That's what it means to be God. It's the
If
infinity
he's
of God.
restricting
I know
himself,
you
it makes
don't
it
like
contingent. His restrictions are contingent on his nature. That's what contingent means. So
So you want to
that's
move
the
on to
problem.
something else, or we're going to keep talking about God, you claiming that I have a composite God and me claiming I have a simple God?
No, again, that's a
You have
straw
any
man.
other
I'm just using
questions
your
for
own
me?
worldview here. I'm using your own words and showing they don't work. So I haven't claimed anything about what it is, what God is like, because I don't think
I
God
disagree.
exists.
I
So,
disagree. I appreciate the
but yeah, we
argument,
can
but
move
I
on to a
disagree.
different problem. So if you have two
Yep.
worlds, one where a guy kills somebody, or both worlds, one guy kills another guy, one world is just purely materialistic, and one world where it's not. How is the world where it's materialistic not less immoral than the world where it's got this God thing?
That's a hypothetical impossibility. You don't have various worlds. I can only deal with the one that God created. So in one sense, it's a good
Hypotheticals called
point.
thought experiments. They don't actually need to be real. That's not how thought experiments work.
Yeah, well, I dwell in the light. I don't dwell with and trying to project or
You don't
involve
think
myself in
you
conjecture.
don't have ideas.
No. I don't involve myself in conjecture about possible worlds.
Those are called ideas and thoughts. That's how thought experiments work. It's how all thought works. It's literally just ideas.
I can just tell you what is, not what might be. I have no idea what
Nope,
might be in a
that's
hypothetical
actually
world.
impossible.
I have no idea.
All you can tell me is your ideas of things. Literally, what you speak of is
Yeah, about
ideas
the
in your
real
head.
world. I can't
So thought experiments are
possibly.
again just ideas in your head. They're no different from any
Okay,
other
sure.
thought.
So I don't engage in thought experiments about worlds that do not exist, and give you some sort of, idea that is absolutely impossible for me to stipulate, given the fact that I don't know the contingencies in that hypothetical world because it doesn't exist.
So you don't think, because that's literally what thinking is.
No, I can think of a possible world, but I'm not going to sit here and try to account for a world that doesn't exist. Why would I do that? It's absurd.
Because that's called thinking. That's literally what thinking is. Thinking is creating an artificial world in our head to
Some
try and
thoughts are
model what we
absurd.
see.
Yes, right. But some thoughts are absurd, and to me, to try to postulate about possible worlds is absurd. It's futile.
Again, the possible world is just the world we live in. We're just saying the world we live in. Here's an idea. This is there's no like alternate reality thing here. So this is how all thinking in science is done. Rejecting this just means you're not thinking. Just saying you can't think. It's so avoiding the topic because you don't want to acknowledge that your worldview makes no sense doesn't work as an argument. So just avoiding thought experiments because they show you
arguing
wrong
about
doesn't really work.
hypotheticals doesn't qualify as an argument. And atheists like to do this all the time. They always like to talk about what might be, what could be, if this kind of world existed, if that kind of world existed, if this is true, if this might be true, if that ontology is true, if that epistemology is true. But they don't like to deal with the world that is. And that's the problem, I say that's a result of what happens to you when you rebel against your creator.
So if
you're
this
left
is
to these
true,
kind
then
of futile
here's the consequence.
lines of thinking.
So that's how thinking works. You say, if this is true, here are the expected consequences. That's what science is.
Mm.
So if you take the expected consequences of the result in a thought experiment, that's what thought experiments are. You should say, if this is true, here's going to be the effect in the world. That's a thought experiment. That's a possible world. In the possible world where this is true, here are the consequences. That's literally all science is. It's just thinking that and then trying to test it against the world. So all those atheists are doing is doing exactly what science does. They're saying, well, if this is true, here are the consequences we can
I'll help
expect.
you
Let's
out.
test it against the world.
Right. No, I know what you're saying. I'll help you out here. I'll let you ask your hypothetical question about your hypothetical world. Go ahead.
Okay. There are two possible worlds. One where a guy killed. They're in both worlds. One guy kills another guy. In one world, there's a god. In one world, there's not. How is it more or less immoral in the second world?
Which one's the second world?
Either one. It doesn't make a difference. Like the one with the god.
Okay, let's say the theistic world, right? The Christian theistic world.
Yeah.
And
Sure.
the question was what? The question is what's the difference or what's wrong?
Why is it more or less immoral to kill a being in one world than the other?
Okay, so let's say world number one is your world, a purely materialistic world, and the world number two is my world, the Christian theistic world, which is what we're supposed to be debating. But in your world, let's say hypothetically, given materialism, what's wrong with killing someone? Nothing.
It's inherently wrong. It's inherently wrong to kill someone in any world, whether there's a god or not a god.
Not to the person
so
killing that person.
They're both wrong equally.
Is killing somebody always wrong?
Yes.
In your world?
In my specific moral paradigm, yes.
In your specific moral paradigm, so everybody has to abide by your specific moral paradigm?
You don't have to abide by anything. It's like, if I'm right about morality, then killing someone is always going to be wrong.
So if a police officer breaks into your house and there's somebody threatening to kill you and your family, that police officer shoots that criminal dead. Is he a murderer or a hero?
It's still wrong to kill. He's still a hero. It's also still murder because there's still a better option. There's still a more moral option.
Should be given a
use a stun gun.
he should be given a trophy, a certificate before they throw him in prison.
No, again, because we have pragmatic limitations
not if he's
here in
a
our
murderer?
world, but we know it's not moral
murderer?
because there's a more moral option. Use a stun gun.
What if there's no moral option?
There's always a more moral option.
I don't think so.
The fact that we physically can't do it doesn't mean there's not a more moral option. So, for example, if he had a stun gun, he could have not killed the guy. He didn't have a stun gun, so he killed a guy. It's still immoral to kill the guy because it's not the most moral option. The most moral option was to use the stun gun, which he didn't have. So obviously, it's not the most moral option he could pick. So it's
right.
Not
so
moral.
I would say that you asked me the question about in what world would it be? I think you said more immoral, more moral.
In what way
and
would
why?
one be more or less moral than the other? So in what way would it be more or less moral to kill another person in a physicalist world versus a theistic world?
Well, obviously, in a Christian theistic world, it is only in a Christian theistic world. This is the way that I would formulate it. Only in a Christian theistic world, obviously, would any act of immorality, any act of evil be evil, because we actually have a transcendental basis for evil.
So in a purely physicalistic worldview, in your view, it wouldn't be immoral to kill people.
Right. What's wrong with evolved pond scum doing something physically to other evolved? I mean, what's the problem? I mean, it's just matter in motion.
Right. So it seems like
how do you assign morality to that?
Yeah. So it seems like, to my view, your view is just morally less moral than my view. Your view just seems less compassionate, less moral. It seems like it's predicated on an idea that is antiquated on this God being there, whereas mine is dependent on the suffering of the being. Like, if that being is suffering, it's immoral. It doesn't matter if there's a God or not. So it seems like my view is significantly more moral than your view.
Yeah, no, I don't agree with that. I mean, obviously, I don't think that materialism gives you moral laws in the first place. You're talking about as observation of certain behaviors, but that doesn't mean a rock gives you a moral law. I don't see morality growing on trees. Stars don't project morality. Nothing. And so,
the question is about It's
Well,
about
no, it
when
is the
you.
question, because if materialism cannot account for morality in the first place, how can it be morally superior? So it absolutely is the
Well,
question.
I already showed it did. I already showed it could. That was the point of the moral
Right.
realism opening I gave. So, but the question I'm
Hmm.
asking is that it seems like in your worldview, you don't account for the suffering of that being who was killed in the second world. You think it's totally fine because there's no God in that one. It seems like that because morality is contingent on your God being, you're just not morally relevant. You don't have the correct moral understanding of reality because you're incompassionate to people suffering if there's no God being. Whereas my worldview is significantly better because it allows for that understanding of morality that yours can't account for.
Yeah. No, and what I've always stressed is that atheists live like Christians every single day of their lives. Without biblical, I don't think you would have any sense of morality whatsoever. You live pretty much according to the golden rule. You live pretty much according to the Ten Commandments. You don't like when people kill, steal, murder. Or let me say murder. Actually, it's the proper way of defining that. But you don't believe it's okay for people to murder you or your family, to steal from you, to dishonor your parents. Let's say, for example, you wouldn't want your neighbor coming over and envying your property or things like that in a greedy fashion. I mean, I don't think you would put up with those kinds of things. I say you live like a Christian every single day of your life. You have to hypocritically borrow from the Christian worldview just to even make these kind of moral claims or make these moral distinctions. You can have whatever philosophy you want, but when it comes down to it, you believe thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not murder, thou shalt not, X, Y, and Z over and over every day. You have example after example. When you go to the cash register, when you purchase a car and you're sitting in the finance office, it is not at all ever okay to be postmodern. It's never at all to just stipulate some hypothetical world that we might be living in. What if the person sitting there at the cash register said, "Oh, I saw a moral law in nature, and it was perfectly okay for people to steal things. The animals do it all the time. Chimpanzees, they steal from each other all the time. Must be okay." In nature, you look out into nature and you see various kinds of species eating each other, eating their children. It must be okay to eat your children. And where does it end?
Well, you could just look in the Bible and say, "Oh, the Bible says you can rape and steal and murder and kill and drown babies and kill all those things. Oh, God told me to do it, therefore it's okay," which has literally happened in many cases throughout history. So that doesn't work. That actually shows why theism doesn't work. In my case, I could just say they're wrong. There is a factual matter. The law says exactly one thing and not multiple things. And so if they have a misinterpretation, they're just factually wrong. But
Sure.
again, the point I was making is that the worldview you're espousing misses moral value. Like there is moral value in the life of that person in the physical universe, and you are discounting that because your worldview doesn't allow you to see morality in that, whereas mine does. So mine is more capable to understand the moral relevancy of worlds than yours is, and it doesn't. And also, all those things you mentioned, the golden rule comes from Hinduism, not Christianity, and all of those things you mentioned
I
predate
disagree.
Get
No, I don't think so. I don't think you can
you
go
don't
any
get an
further
opinion on it.
back
It's
than
just
the
a
first
fact.
man.
We have the dates.
Well, no, you can't. You can't go any further back than the first man, Adam. And so nothing predates Christianity. Nothing.
Christianity started with
Adam was a
Jesus. Jesus came
Well, that
in
shows me.
like 30 BC,
Tom.
30 AD.
Tom, with all yeah, with all due respect, that shows me your complete and utter ignorance regarding Christianity. If you would make a statement like Christianity began with Jesus, then that shows me that you don't comprehend Christianity and Christian doctrine even at a very elementary level. Christian doctrine, the word Christian, okay, for example, the word Christian was a derogatory term attributed to the followers of Jesus. Jesus himself believed in the triune God of the Bible. Jesus believed in the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. There is only one religion. We call it now Christianity, okay, but it is essentially the belief. Originally, if you read the book of Acts, it was also called the Way. And so the way, Christianity, the religion of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, is the belief that Adam held. It is the belief that Abraham held, that Moses held, that the prophets held, that Jesus held. It is organically one and the same. That's what the Bible claims. So taking the Bible on its own claims, which I don't know if you're willing to do that, but taken on its own claims, letting the Bible speak for itself, we have one faith. The Bible says there's one faith, one common salvation. And that salvation goes intertestamentally. I don't know if you've ever heard this before, but it's an intertestamental faith We have the same faith that goes all the way back to the original man. Nothing predates Adam and Eve. Nothing. And there is no religion that can give us the kind of tradition genealogically, textually, going back to the original man. Nothing. Not even close. Unless you know of something.
Yeah, not even Christianity, because there's absolutely no evidence of that, and all of the evidence is against it. We know the
James Ussher
Judaism
has done
predated Christianity,
exhaustive
and
genealogical studies going back to Adam. And we have
No, there
studies
aren't.
like that. I mean, I don't know if you've
There are
taken the
none.
time to read and to study those things. Old Testament scholars have presented exhaustive studies in the area of the Bible's genealogies. I can tell you they are quite comprehensive indeed. But that would assume that you accept the testimony of Scripture, which you do not. I understand that. I don't expect you to believe that the genealogies of the Bible are reliable because you don't believe the first verse of the Bible. So why would you believe anything else about the Bible?
Well, I could just accept the Bible and show that those genealogies just literally don't work because there's contradictions and wrong things in them, which have been done by most Old Testament scholars, which is why they don't consider it to be reliable, which is the consensus in most historical fields. But there's also like genetic evidence that shows there was no first man. We evolved. There's no Adam. So there's
Well, I
lots of
appreciate
problems
that,
with
but that's the sure. Okay, I don't think we'll ever. I can give you all the scholarship. I can cite you the scholars and stuff like that. I'm sure you wouldn't care.
I can cite the actual scholars on the topic, and the majority of them in pretty much every field.
Well, so can I.
I'd like
to hear what scholars you're talking about that would say there was no Adam.
Pretty much all of them, like literally the vast majority of historical scholars, both Old Testament and New Testament, admit
you're
that there was probably no Adam.
Right, but those scholars all have one great anti-Christian presupposition, and that is literally a secular understanding of history. I don't have a secular understanding of history. I have a redemptive historical paradigm that is built on Christian presuppositions as opposed to secular presuppositions.
Well, I'm granting most of the Christian scholars also don't admit there was no Adam and there was no, like, Moses didn't exist, and many of the characters in the Old Testament are just fictions because that's what all the evidence indicates.
Yeah. Well, I think you're obviously wrong about that. I mean, maybe you haven't. I mean, I can turn and I can give you all of the scholars I think who are the best Genesis scholars in the world.
Well, I can give you the polls of the historians of both Christians and atheists that show the vast majority of historians think that didn't happen. Like there's debate about whether or not there was a tomb.
And I guarantee you that I'll show you that they're not Christian, that they're secularists. They don't believe in the inspiration, the inerrancy, the infallibility of the Bible. Certainly not evangelical in to any degree. Those are what you're talking about, Tom. Those are called liberal Christian scholars.
Oh, that's fine. You can just say they're not.
It's not fine to me. It's not fine to me.
No, I'm saying it's fine for you to label them that way. I'm okay with that.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Hey, how many like conservative historians, Christian historians have you read, Tom?
I don't know a number of them. There's not that many. I usually focus on the majority of the experts in the field, so it's not as much, but I definitely have.
Yeah, I mean, I can just turn on my book. I can look at my book real quick, Marlon, and just tell you that just looking at my book, you have the Word Biblical Commentary, you have the Nikot Commentary, the American commentary on the Bible. I have Keel and Dillich, those guys. I have obviously the Gabling commentaries. I have the Encyclopedia of Biblical, Theological, and Ecclesiastical Literature by McClintock and Strong. I mean, I can give you every source you could fathom. Every Old Testament scholars, Meredith Kline, who's one of the greatest Old Testament scholars in the world, Gleason Archer, who knew over 20 Semitic languages that I can quote to you. See, I can give you scholar after scholar after scholar, but that would be irrelevant because Tom has a different presuppositional approach to the whole field of history, namely a secular presupposition. I have a Christian presupposition.
I didn't have a presupposition there. I'm just listing what the expert consensus is. The people who are in the field who understand it better than anybody else hold these positions. I didn't list what my position is because I don't actually have a position on those. I haven't researched them.
Like I said, if you can give me those experts, I think I just rattled off who I think are the experts. I mean, there's an expert a better expert than Gleason Archer? The man knew over 20 Semitic languages and dedicated decades of his life to the study of Old Testament theology and history. You have a scholar on par with Gleason Archer? I mean, certainly it could be better than Gleason
I'm sure
Archer.
I could if I tried to like.
Walter Kaiser?
Tried
You
to
think
measure
Walter,
up the
Walter
scholars?
Kaiser has
I'm
dedicated his life to Old Testament studies. Now, I think what Tom is saying is that you can go online and find a liberal scholar that'll pretty much tell you anything about the Bible. Jesus did not exist. There is no Adam. The flood did not. Well, I already knew that. I mean, that's not news to me. Thank you very much.
Well, I'm not saying online. I'm saying if you can go to any university, any college, any reputable historical university, or anywhere in the country, all of the
I would
top
stack the scholarship of
historical
the
institutions, they all
right.
reject that. They all reject like Moses was real. There was no
unless
real
you're
Adam.
going to give me specifics, Tom. Right, unless you're going to give me specifics, Tom, it's kind of useless for you to cite experts that you're not familiar with.
Yeah, I can definitely do that. It's pretty easy to find the vast majority of them because they all kind of hold this as just quotes from historians talking about these things all over the place. It's not. This is pretty well known knowledge. Wasn't expecting to have to bring that up, but yeah, it's pretty well known that they don't think that like Adam was real.
Well, you brought up something predating Christianity, and so you'd have to defend your claims here tonight.
Well, yeah, Judaism predates Christianity, and Hinduism predates Judaism, and Zoroastrianism predates Christianity and Judaism.
That's a statement that exposes your theological ignorance of what Christianity and Judaism are. But that's okay.
I know what they claim to be, but I have the actual historical records with actual archaeological evidence that we can show that they didn't exist prior to Zoroastrianism and Hinduism. So we have physical evidence that they're wrong. That's kind of the claim. They claim to be the ultimate religion, but that's just a claim.
Well, let me tell you, having just recently visited Israel and having gone to many of the archaeological digs and visiting the various archaeological sites, I can tell you there are mountains and mountains of evidence supporting all of the biblical claims, and there's nothing in antiquity that comes even close to the kind of archaeology, paleontology, textual criticism that we have for the Bible in contrast to any other religion. I'd like you to name a single religion that has a greater attestation to its text than biblical Christianity. Can you do that for me?
Greater in number? Like we have actual Mayan temples that predated Christianity. So
number, reliability, proximity, variation, geography.
Like the number? Like no, because historians have monasteries where people who are just literally copying pages and pages. So we have thousands and thousands of examples of New Testament documents, but that isn't matter. No matter how many New Testament documents you have, that's not going to disprove the fact that we have literal Hindu temples that are outdate Christianity. Like it doesn't matter how many documents you have. We have temples that are older than Christianity.
That's because that's based on a fallacious definition of what Christianity is that I do not accept, and that is, if you went to any seminary, any respected theological institution, I keep hitting my camera, sorry, but if you went to any respectable theological institution and you stood up in the middle of a seminary theology class and you made the statement that Judaism predates Christianity, you would be completely wrong. If what you're saying is that Christianity, in terms of its belief in the God of Jesus, which is the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, are not one. This is what I mean. This is an intertestamental faith, and which is not something that I don't think you can defend.
But yeah, if you stood up and said that in front of a history class, you'd just be laughed out of the class. Like you would fail. If you were taking any classical history class in any field of history in any academic study ever,
I don't think so. That's already been done. That's already been done, Tom. Tom, that's already been done. These liberals have been debated in the past.
All right, guys, we're going to conclude this discussion right there. Good discussion. Kind of veered off into a little bit of church history, a little Bible content.
Do we still have our closing statement?
Yeah, we still got closing statements, man. So we're going to conclude the discussion portion of this. So we're going to have 5-minute closes, then we're going to go to Q&A. So audience, if you have more questions, get them in. We got some already, but get them in if you have questions. So with that said, Tom, you're up for your closing remarks, man.
Oh yeah, so the debate was, can atheism offer grounds of objective morality? And yes, we can. We can offer one significantly better than theism in every possible way. It doesn't have the same problems of theism. It can answer more questions than theism. It's more morally relevant than theism, and it has more, like, it's more moral in the fact that it can acknowledge the suffering of beings without a soul, whereas theism can't. Like, they can't see that as actually moral, which is kind of a problem. Where we can. So obviously our system is more moral than theirs is. Not to mention, Euthyphro Dilemma shows that it can't be grounded in a conscious agent. Conscious agents can't ground objective morality. The problem of supervenience shows that morality can't be in a non-physical way, non-natural way. There has to be some kind of physical aspect to morality. There's lots of different alternatives: Platonic morality, and other different models of objective morality. Hilary Putnam's model of objective morality. All of them are better than theism. Again, the theism just doesn't work as a model of objective morality. We talked about a whole bunch of different topics here. There wasn't any contradiction in anything I said. It's just different. When I use different definitions, it's like for the sake of the argument. Like, ontology invariant doesn't mean you're giving up ontology. It means it's true independent of ontology. And numbers and logic are true independent of ontology. They're just descriptions of the way reality is, and that's it. Don't use Godless Girl as an example. Godless Girl is not what happens when you give up God. That's like saying Hitler is what happens when you give up God. Like, no, it's just a reductio ad absurdum. There's lots of things about ontology in there. Like, you don't need absolute certainty to have knowledge. It's not a thing. You can say perfectly meaningful claims. Say, if this understanding of reality is correct, then I have knowledge of reality. You don't need to have absolute certainty for knowledge, called fallibilism, common position in philosophy. And that's pretty much it. Like, yeah, in order to understand morality, you just need to know the world can be better without things like rape, and you can justify that purely naturalistically. You don't need any kind of supernatural anything.
All right. Thank you. All right, Emilio, you got it for 5 minutes, man. Closing remarks.
All right, great. Well, thanks again, Marlon, for this opportunity. I want to thank Tom for participating. I know we've had a lot of technical problems, and so I appreciate everybody just persevering through all of that. Tom does not like my appeal to Godless Girl as something that happens to you if you deny God. Okay, that's fine. TJump is what can happen to you if you deny God. And that is not at all philosophically acceptable given his worldview. Now, Tom has been defending a non-Christian, atheistic, and at times what he calls agnostic worldview, trying to substantiate universal morality without God. And I have endeavored to show how that only biblical Christianity can make sense out of experience by arguing that Christianity alone can provide us with the preconditions essential or for essential components of a properly functioning worldview. And I believe that my debate opponent tonight does not, in fact, have a properly functioning worldview. Especially given his understanding of materialism as his ontological basis. But anyway, this can be seen in a number of ways by many of the confusing and self-refuting statements that Tom often makes in formulating his beliefs with respect to religion, philosophy, and ethics. He defends atheism, but he also espouses to be agnostic. That is to me, philosophically self-refuting. How do you know if you believe in atheism, or how can you substantiate atheism if you are at the same time agnostic? I didn't hear a clear explanation about that. He claims to have an absolute standard of morality, all the while confessing that he does not need ontology, so that the morality in his worldview is not yet proven to be a thing. Remember, he says he does not know what moral or what reality actually is, or he does not know what is ultimately real. These kinds of statements. But if morality does not possess ontic qualities that can be known and known with certainty, Tom must engage in a strand of epistemology that is hopelessly arbitrary, ultimately meaningless, again, given his worldview. And again, Tom wants to stipulate an absolute standard of morality in an arbitrary fashion, even at times espousing some kind of twisted, deterministic, intuitionistic morality that's based on sheer fiat powers that he does not possess. This is a point in fact philosophically. This is in point of fact a philosophical anarchy at best. Where does Tom get these ontological and epistemological and ethical fiat privileges? We're never told. He says it's just this way. Everybody knows it, but we're not told how or why. And when given clear examples of the fact that no, not everybody does know that, he appeals to experts. Now, of course, at the formal logic level, Tom is simply engaging in the fallacy of begging the question, because, of course, Tom's intuition is not only incompatible with my own intuition as a Christian, but it's inconsistent with the nature of humanity at a universal level. Does Tom not understand that the vast majority of human beings do not fall into his particular branch of moral intuitionism, especially given the fact that the vast majority of the human race is religious at some level or another? As I've tried to make sense out of Tom's arguments for absolute morality from the anti-theistic perspective, which I think that's the proper category, not atheism, but anti-theistic, at least according to the Bible. Tom has regularly summarized his argument this way: all involuntary imposition of the will is immoral. However, does Tom not understand that, in fact, when you look at countless examples in society, and you look at a consensus, in fact, when parents discipline their children, when police officers punish evildoers, when the government engages in just war, when medical experts are forced to subdue unwilling patients, vaccines are given to children who do not want to be vaccinated. Not that I'm a vaccination person, but you know what I mean? When you have to administer a vaccine to a child that's sick, for example, and give them medicine, many examples, and we can go on and on with examples of how this supposed imposition of the will is immoral. And matter of fact, it can be the highest morality, the greatest virtue of all. It's interesting that Tom said that a police officer who would save his life and would have to kill an intruder or an evildoer in a certain situation is both, quote, a murderer and a hero. That to me is philosophically, ethically unacceptable. And again, given his worldview, Tom does not believe in the ultimate punish of evildoers. According to Tom, the wicked in the end will go free. According to Tom, Hitler will receive the same retribution for his deeds as a petty thief. Where's the sense of justice in Tom's worldview? If he does believe in justice, what is the punishment? If death is the end, then all sense of justice and morality should be lost, because, again, everybody suffers the same fate in the end. No, I think, to me, sadly, in the end, Tom, if he doesn't repent, and I mean this with all my heart, I know we argue and go back and forth, but if Tom does not repent, if he doesn't turn from his God-hating ways, trust in the finished work of Jesus Christ on the cross, Tom will sadly have lived a life campaigning for a worldview he cannot substantiate, rejecting a God he cannot deny, grinding his axe away at a God with which he cannot contend, and is his only hope. The hope here is that everybody watching this exchange between Tom and I will understand the futility of unbelief, and they will see the futility of rejecting God, because, as Scripture says, only in his light do we see light. And apart from that, Tom and everybody else who's outside of Jesus Christ will only grow more and more calloused toward the truth, until at last no measure of light whatsoever will dispel the darkness of their own futility, the futility of their mind, and the depravity of their heart. And so, Tom, I'll say this directly to you. It is my earnest desire, Tom, that you would repent of your sin, that you would put your faith in Jesus Christ before it's too late, because, as you know, you're not promised tomorrow. Life is very short. Eternity is very long, and your only hope resides in the person and work of Jesus Christ. And so I hope that you will do so. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you both for the closing remarks. All right. Now, so we're going to jump into this Q&A. We have several questions, so let's get to them real quick. All right. This one's for you, Tom. You'll see it pop up on the bottom of the screen here. It says, Tom, you said 1 + 1 = 2 is true given any ontology. How do you know this is the case if you admit that you have no opinion on the problem of the one and the many?
You're confusing epistemology and ontology. The ontological nature of reality is true independent of my knowledge one way or the other. So whether or not I know or have a position I know what the one and the many is doesn't change the fact that 1 + 1 = 2. Like you can't make 1 + 1 not equal 2. It's a logical description of reality. Like reality can't be not reality. You can't make reality plus not reality. It doesn't work. So it's just literally the case that 1 + 1 = 2 is an analytic truth about reality. It's a logical truth about descriptions of reality. Ontology makes no difference to it whatsoever. If you're an idealist, then you have an idealistic 1 + 1. And if you're a dualist, you have a dualistic 1 + 1. It makes no difference whatsoever.
All right, Emilio, any thoughts, man? Any thoughts on that question, Emilio?
Yeah, there's a thorny philosophical problem with the word "is." Anytime Tom talks about what is, he slips out of the realm of pure epistemology and into the realm of ontology. Again, we absolutely have to refuse this idea that we have to divorce ontology from epistemology, and that the one has nothing to do with the other. I think I would put it this way: we have to sustain a proper ontological epistemological distinction, but at the same time acknowledge the ontological and epistemological relation.
All right. Next question. We try to find one for you, Emilio. Let me see.
There are none for me.
Yeah, it's tough, man. I have this question, but let me see. Gospel truth for Emilio. What is the fundamental difference between his divine deterministic worldview and Tom's naturalist determinism?
One is rooted in the eternal good pleasure of a sovereign God who does everything according to his own divine purpose and for his own divine glory. That is certainly, and what that does is it takes it out of a fatalistic, a cold, deterministic framework, and it situates it in a personal being, a personal God, who is doing everything according to his meticulous wisdom and the depths of his own infinite knowledge. And so it makes everything in the world that happens to happen for a real purpose. Whereas I would think in Tom's naturalistic determinism, things happen for absolutely no reason. And that, I think that showed tonight, given his understanding of things like morality, justice. So Hitler can kill millions of people. And why did it happen? What's the explanation, or how do you account for it? There is no account for it. It's meaningless. It's utterly random. It has no purpose. It has no telic a function in the universe whatsoever. It's just a senseless, random, meaningless event in a naturalistic world, which is itself random, meaningless, and in that sense, it is a true, cold, fatalistic determinism.
What would you say to that, Tom? I mean, naturalist determinism. I mean, how would objective morals fit in that system? If we take in consideration that there is really nothing guiding the progression of this naturalist determinism. There's no intelligent being, if you will. There's no God. No moral person, no one to give that personal aspect to morality. How do you bring objective morals, an objective standard of morality, into something that's essentially nothing guiding it?
Well, the answer is that anything God can do can be done without a God. So if you want to say there's this reason and purpose and whatever, you can just say, okay, there's reason and purpose. It's an undiscovered law of nature. Essentially, all theism is doing is just making up an answer to something they want and just saying, well, God did it. Well, you can do that with naturalism too. You just say, okay, it's an undiscovered law of nature, problem solved. So really, the God hypothesis accomplishes nothing. It's just like the questioner asked, like, what's the difference between determinism if it's determined by God versus determined by nature? Well, literally nothing. There's literally no difference. Like if you had a world, two possible worlds, he hates the possible worlds thinking, but if you have two possible worlds, one's determined by nature and one's determined by God, they're going to be the exact same world, as long as they're determined to be the same thing. So there would be literally no difference. It's adding purpose or meaning changes nothing, and you can just do the same thing under naturalism. So that hypothesis doesn't work.
Follow-up question to that. So how do you keep anybody obligated, or how do you keep anybody accountable for their actions in a naturalistic system where there is essentially no moral? How do you keep people accountable in that kind of system where everything is just determined naturalistically? So in other words, is an alligator morally accountable for eating someone in Florida, eating a child in Florida? Is the alligator morally accountable for that?
I would say that nature is morally accountable. I'd say holding people accountable, like you don't hold people accountable. You punish them, like you put them in jail or whatever. but
Yeah,
you
but you're
can't
holding them
like,
accountable for that, right? That's accountability, right?
yeah, but it's like, are you asking for accountability? Like, would we hold an alligator accountable, or would we like put someone
Yeah,
in jail? Because we put people in jail
because
just fine. We don't
yeah,
need some
because you
kind of
just
transcendental lawgiver to hold people accountable for being immoral. We just put them in jail and try to stop them from being immoral.
no. I guess my point would be that there is no objective. There is no accountability without a personal God. I can't fathom, or I can't even consider or think that the naturalistic system would account for moral accountability, where everyone is just essentially acting on their natural instinct. So if an alligator eats a baby and a human murders somebody, then where is the accountability? How can you hold a human to a certain standard and not that alligator to that same standard if we're talking about a naturalistic system?
You'd hold them both to the same standard. It's just the standard is given by compatibilism. It's your ability to have a neurological understanding of what you should and shouldn't do, and then your ability to act on that standard. So alligators don't have the intellectual capability, so we don't hold them accountable for the same reason we don't hold children accountable, because they don't have the intellectual capability to recognize the difference between the two things. But so yeah, we hold them to the same standard. There's not a problem there.
So would you, if you had a child, Tom, would you discipline your child for acting up?
Sure, to teach them how to act correctly.
Right. Would you hold that same accountability to an alligator or a dog or something like that?
Yes, if I don't know if we can train alligators in that way, but we definitely can for dogs. So yes.
What'd you say, Emilio? What'd you say to that, brother?
Uh, I heard Tom make a statement that to me sounded um, really strange, and I don't know if he wishes to clarify or to retract it or to rephrase it, or maybe I misunderstood it. If I did, I'm sorry, Tom. You said nature is morally accountable. To
Yeah,
who and to what?
to us. So I'd say that if we can compare possible worlds and say that one world with suffering is worse and less is more immoral than a world without suffering. And so we say that world is accountable to the people in it who have been forced in it without their consent. And it would be more moral to be in a world without that suffering. So yes, the world
You
itself
said,
is immoral. It's a natural
okay,
fact.
I'm sorry. I thought you said what you're saying is, would do you think you would want to rephrase that to say something like society is morally accountable to us? Because nature is a very
No,
comprehensive term. I mean,
no,
the
I mean nature.
rocks
I mean
are
like the
accountable to.
fundamental laws of nature, physics, reality itself. No, I don't want to rephrase that at all. Rephrase it perfectly.
Okay, okay. I guess the word accountable therefore means something other than what Marlon was talking about. Marlon is talking about moral accountability. How are the rocks and the trees morally accountable to us?
They're responsible. Like we can compare the morality of the things. Like I think you're right that moral accountability means something different than what you think it means. Moral accountability does not require sentience. Moral accountability is just what is the moral law. Can it accomplish that or not accomplish that, or does it move you towards or away from that? Like
Does
the
it? Does it?
consensus in neurology right now is there is no free will. There is no such thing. Morality only refers to um, neurons acting in a brain. But compatibilism, the position that free will is not incompatible with determinism, says that you can have that just fine accountability with just determinism. There's not a contradiction there.
Okay. Let's go to
I
another
mean,
question.
I could go on, Marlon, but I don't know that I don't want to drag one thing on longer than you'd like. So,
Yeah,
you let
let's
me
let's
know.
get the questions in. We're gonna get some more questions in. Let's dig through this real quick. All right, next question. It says Tom for Tom. Some humans evolve to love their neighbors. Other humans evolve to eat their neighbors. Do you have a preference?
Do I have a preference? I don't know what that means. Like some humans evolve to be colorblind. Some humans evolve to have very good sight. Like I would prefer to have very good sight.
Emilio, any thoughts?
Um, yeah. Again, given the idea of naturalism, right? I mean, uh, naturalism destroys any sort of human dignity. There is no human dignity, and so I think Marlon was right to point out the logical consistency of something that like naturalism, right? I mean, do we hold do we hold an alligator accountable in the same way that we hold human beings accountable? In a naturalistic universe where human beings are just like any other species, quote unquote, and they do not experience any sort of special place in this universe. They do not possess any sort of transcendental qualities that distinguish them or that would give them any sort of dignity above the non-rational animals in the world. The Bible is very careful to point that out, that human beings are created in the image of God and animals are not, and therefore, when an alligator eats its baby alligator, we don't have a funeral for it. We don't involve ourselves in those kinds of things. Okay, when you step on an ant or a snail or a cockroach, okay, you don't call the police. But given naturalism, why shouldn't we? Why not? I mean, I have naturalists on a college campus, students that tell me all the time, coming from something like Tom's worldview, that they are no different than the flea on the back of their dog, given naturalism and materialism. So, yeah, it's a completely self-destructive worldview.
Well, I'd actually say the opposite. It actually values the flea. The flea, as an agent, as an existing thing, should have value just like humans do. So it's the opposite.
Do you value the flea, or do you
Yes.
kill the fleas on the dog's back?
I definitely kill the fleas, but I do value them. I see them as having value, even if I don't care.
But when you kill those fleas, you're not a murderer. If you kill me, if
No,
somebody
I would
jumps
say
on your
yes, I am.
back,
I would say that it's always immoral to kill any conscious thing ever, always. So it is immoral to kill fleas too. You shouldn't do it if possible.
then that obliterates the distinction of murder, because everyone everywhere is committing it. Apparently, it's absurdity.
No, it says that it's wrong to murder any conscious thing. It's not. Rocks are still not conscious. You can't murder rocks. So there's still a distinction there. It just incorporates all living things, conscious things.
Who decides that a conscious thing is what can be murdered? Where did we get that?
Well, that would be presumably the law of nature
law.
that is a fact of reality is what determines that. It's just a fact.
I don't see the law of nature telling me that anywhere. I don't see the law of nature written in a field somewhere that tells me that.
And we're going to discover it soon enough.
Okay. All right.
Tom, so are you telling me that a flea, a cockroach, is just as valuable as a human being on the same plateau, on the same level as a human being?
On the same level as in it's a moral entity and it should be respected and should be given life if possible and not killed? Yes. Like all conscious things deserve respect and should be given life, and killing them is wrong and you shouldn't do it. Like all conscious things. Like, I mean, we definitely do kill them. I'm not a vegan. I eat meat, which we shouldn't do.
Is it more moral to? Is it wrong? More? I don't know the term I want to use, man.
Yeah, I think I know what you're saying. I would say it's if something has greater levels of consciousness, it may be more wrong to kill something with a greater level of consciousness. So if humans have a greater level of consciousness, then it may be more wrong to kill them than to kill a flea.
So, is it somebody with dementia? It's someone with dementia.
Tom?
Someone with
Why
dementia.
is Tom pro-choice?
I think it is immoral to have an abortion if the child is conscious, but it's also immoral to use one person's body without their consent. So it's both cases it's justified to have the abortion even if it does end up killing someone, just like it's justified to kill someone in self-defense, even though it's immoral, just like the police officer case you gave the example of.
All right, next question. Coming at you, Tom. They're hitting you hard, Tom, man. They're hitting you hard. If he cannot know his theory of reality is correct, then how can he even derive moral objectives that are actually real?
You can know it. Knowledge does not require absolute certainty. So when Emilio uses knowledge, he's misusing the term. It does not mean you have absolute certainty. You don't need absolute certainty to know something. So you can know it. Not a problem.
All right. Emilio, any thoughts on that?
I never claim that you have to have absolute certainty of everything or anything to make a knowledge claim. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that you do have to have some sort of transcendental foundation for knowledge in order to make your truth claims, or else your truth claims are reduced to a level of absurdity. They don't conform to what is real, because you do not know what ultimate reality consists of. If you don't know what ultimate reality consists of, then your knowledge claims are never going to be known, not for certain anyway. So yes, we do have to have a level of certainty, but no, we don't have to be certain about everything. Of course not. We're not omniscient. But if we're going to predicate things about religion, God, and ultimate reality, then we would need to, if we're not going to take God's word for it, we would need to have a level of absolute certainty in order to validate our epistemology. That's just the way that it is. Given that, and also the fact too, Tom, that the way that knowledge works. I mean, this is what Van Til calls the endless stream of facts. Facts are always coming. Knowledge is always growing. The issues are always becoming more and more complex, and unless you can verify everything at once and in every way, comprehensively and exhaustively, yes, there's a sense in which you can say that your knowledge claims are not validated, not verified, no matter what you say. I don't believe in brute facts. I should have stated that from the very beginning. There's no such thing as a brute fact. Every fact is contingent upon other facts.
You keep saying you don't need certainty, but you do need certainty. I'm very confused.
Well, yeah, what I'm trying to account for, on the one hand, I'm not saying that in order to make a claim, you have to have the kind of certainty that God has, let's say on an omniscient level. But I will say this, unless you rely on the knowledge of God, you do, if you want to have philosophical certainty, you do have to have sort of this exhaustive ability to verify the truth claims that you're making, the interconnected nature of facts, the interdependent nature of facts, and those kinds of things. So yeah, in one sense, especially when you're stipulating things about God and religion and those kinds of things.
All right.
Okay, so we have a transcendental source, which is just nature, and that's our transcendental source, and we can just have knowledge that way, just like you have knowledge of God. There you go.
All right, next question. Tom, when tradition or natural selection writes an objective moral intuition into our being, is it like our knowing God and evil, good and evil? Because God writes the law on our hearts.
Sort of. So yeah, I'm saying intuition is our way of knowing objective morality. So we are given it through things like evolution and something. So if evolution gives us a way to recognize the law of nature, then that would be like evolution giving us a way to recognize photons. It's not like written in, but in a sense, I think those are similar.
Emilio?
Yeah, I don't accept at all that natural selection does anything, because I don't believe in natural selection to begin with. Not if we're talking in a Darwinian evolutionary model. I don't believe in it at all. Nature, during the course of this debate, if you've listened carefully, nature has been personified over and over. What nature can do, what it can give us, what it says to us, what it, what it presents to us, what it writes into our beings. This is again, this shows the fundamental religious nature of man. Man needs to personify nature if he doesn't want to accept the personhood of God. And that's exactly what the Bible says, exactly what Romans chapter 1 says. When you deny the God of the Bible, you will personify nature and worship that.
Also, humans just like to anthropomorphize things, so it's pretty well known.
That's true. I'll grant you that.
We agreed on something, man. There it is.
Yeah. Is that a good end? Is that a good point to end on?
We got one more question, man. This is the last question for you. And you know it's for you, Tom, but you know it's for you. All right, Tom. Have you read the New Testament cover to cover, man?
I've read the entire Bible cover to cover. I don't know which version you espouse. I think I read the NJV. I don't know, maybe whichever ones my parents used. I read it cover to cover twice.
Emilio, have you read the?
Yep.
Have you read the Bible, the New Testament cover to cover, man?
I hope so, man.
Oh, man.
Because, yes, I have actually, and I did that at a pretty early age as a Christian. I didn't grow up in a religious home at all, so I wasn't really given any kind of religious tradition, nothing like that. No Christian upbringing whatsoever. So when I first got my hands on a Bible, oh yes, very vociferously, I devoured it, cover to cover as much as possible. It took me a while because when I became a Christian at 19 years old, I couldn't read very well, and so I had to kind of learn how to read first the right way. And things like that. You know, the Bible at times is not the easiest book to read. I mean, you read the argument of the book of Hebrews, you read the poetry of the book of Ecclesiastes or the book of Job. Sometimes the Bible is quite complex. And so that's why not the question we should be asking people is, have you read the Bible cover to cover, but have you read the Bible carefully?
That is key. That is key. Well, that concludes it, man. That is our last question, folks. Getting past the technical difficulties and everything and all that, this turned out to be a solid discussion, man. And this is a good one, man. This goes in in the book with the good ones, man. So I thank you too for joining me on this episode of Gospel Truth, man. And as always, I sent Tom a gift already when he first came on for a debate. So Emilio, I'm gonna send you a gift, man. I'm gonna set you up real nice, man.
Where's my gift?
Huh? I send out gifts,
where's
man.
my gift?
Oh, it's coming, man. It's coming, man. I'll connect with you after the show, man. I'm gonna get that gift to you, man. I appreciate both of you, and perhaps we could do this again and get past these technical difficulties, man. And you guys were great, and thanks a lot. I appreciate you both, man.
Well, yeah, I appreciate you too, and I just want to express my gratitude to Tom. Thank you very much, Tom. You're very cordial debate partner.
Thanks for having a debate with me. I appreciate you taking the time to have a conversation.
Cool. All right, fellas, I'm gonna close this thing out. Talk to y'all soon. All right, folks, another one in the books, man. Another great debate, great discussion. I love these things. That's why I try to put them together, man, because it's important that we do these things. It's important that we have these discussions. We can't live in our own little cubicle, our own little circle, our own little bubble, and not engage those issues that may disagree with your situation or your position. So that's why these discussions are important. And I thank Tom, I thank Emilio for sticking with me, man, and being able to get through it. And it turned out to be a very, very helpful debate, understanding the difference, the difficulties of these situations, the arguments, and just being able to have a great discussion concerning these things. And I hope that as you are viewing these debates, as you are interacting with these debates in the live chats, as you're talking with individuals who disagree with you, I hope you're doing it in the right manner. It's important that we understand that a kind word turns away wrath. And that's how we need to do as Christians. That's how we need to behave as believers. We need to behave in a manner that's glorifying to God, and that's going to encourage discussion. That's going to encourage engagement. And if we're not doing that, then you have a big problem on your hands, and you need to go reassess that. All right. But I thank you for joining me on this episode. But before I get out of here, let me go ahead and go over these announcements that I have coming up, shows that I have coming up in the future. All right, coming up on July 24th, I have Jim Majors versus Michael Jones, Inspiring Philosophy. TJump debated Michael Jones. And these guys are going to be discussing, was Jesus buried in a tomb? That's coming up July 4th, 2020 at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. After that, I have Jack Shannon versus Stephen Boyce. Another debate, does the Bible teach that remarriage is always sinful? July 27th at 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. After that, I have Joseph Lawal versus Jeremiah Nortier. Different worldview perspectives. A Mormon and a Christian is going to have a great discussion, and I'm pretty excited about this one. After that, I have Richard Suttles versus Robert McKever, and they're going to be discussing are moral intuitions necessarily moral facts? That's coming up August 3rd at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Once again, that is just the next 4 shows coming up on the Gospel of Truth. I pray that you're staying in lockdown with us, man. I pray that you're staying with us, and we're all in lockdown, should I say, man, with this whole coronavirus thing going on. But I hope you're panning out, you're praying, staying prayerful, reading your scriptures, reading the text, studying. That is key. That is important for us to persevere through all this nonsense. With that said, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. I want to thank TJump and Emilio Ramos once again for joining me on this episode. And I want to thank you for your support. May God bless you and may God keep you. I'm gone.